welcome everybody to the special meeting of the East Central Independent School District Board of Trustees being held on June 7th, 2022, beginning at 5:30 at the Student Services Building. Monique, can we have a roll call?
Sure. Dale Brazil. Present. Ginger Friesenhorn.
Here.
Victor Garza.
Here.
Jane Smolke.
Here.
Claudia Barrientos. Monique Presses here. John Messengill.
Thank you very much, Monique.
Mr. President, we have a quorum.
We'll move on to item 3, prayer and pledge. Mr. Scott?
Sorry, Ms. Coles.
Thank you. Good evening, President Massengill, Superintendent Scano, members of the board. Will everyone please bow their head? Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and the leaders gathered here tonight. We pray that you will bless this meeting so that the decisions made lead to the benefit of our students, staff, and community. We ask that you enlighten each one of us so that we can contribute our knowledge, expertise, and ideas in a productive manner. We pray that you will bless our plans and help us successfully bring them to fruition. We ask your blessing on our leaders and our community and ask that you see us all home safely after the meeting. We ask these things in your name. Amen. Amen. Will you please stand for the pledge?
I think it's up
There's a
there.
flag that's up there at the end of the stadium.
Yeah, there we go.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Ms. Colas. We will move on to item 4, public comments.
No public comments, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Colas. Move on to item 5, superintendent report.
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. Gunner?
That's good. The only item that I have to report this evening was just a formal announcement with Mr. Shane McKay. Will be moving into a new role next year as an Executive Director of Student and Community Engagement. He will be successor to Ashley Colas as she moves into her next season professionally as the new superintendent post ISD beginning July 1st. So congratulations to both of them, and very much well deserved, and looking forward to working with both of them in their new roles.
Congratulations.
I have one item for the trustees. Check y'all's calendar. We need to schedule another board workshop for June 20th, 5:30, so check your calendar. So we can, special workshop for June 20th, this, at 5:30 here back at the Student Services. Haven't got all the details worked out yet, so I will be updating you all the details, but I just need to know if y'all's calendars are clear for that date.
I'm good.
You good? Everybody good?
Should be.
I don't know, I'm not sure, because that's after, yeah,
Okay.
I'll let you know.
Okay, let me know, but we'll have a special board meeting workshop for 6:20 at 5:30 here at Student Services. And so move on to the action agenda. 6.1, discuss and take action on recommendation from the Redistricting Advisory Committee regarding revision of single-member district boundaries after the 2020 census. Who do we have?
Mr. President, we have Rob Decker from Walsh Gallegos with us tonight, back with us tonight to bring the board up to speed on what's transpired by way of the Redistricting Advisory Committee and the democracy facilitation of that work that they did together to address the statutorial requirements of the Board of Trustees as it relates to redistricting. So, Decker, thanks for being here, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. It's been a few months since we had the conversation on the front side, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out quickly in the presentation and just run over why are we doing it. We're going to look at the numbers real quick, and then we're going to jump into the meat of it. It's still not going to take real long unless you all have a bunch of questions, which I don't really foresee that you will. But with that said, so what is redistricting? Again, just a remembrance, it's redistricting is the process by which the geographical boundaries of the elected districts, the single member districts, are periodically redrawn in response to the changes in population. It's not a size, it's not a physical size, it's a population size. And so you're gonna have a bunch of physically different sized districts. What is the standard that we have to do? Well, under Texas Education Code 11.052 sub I, if the census data indicates that the population of the most populous single-member district exceeds the population of the least population single-member district by more than 10%, we're gonna have to do it. Okay? We're later than we generally have been, although you all, because of your cycle, you're always you're in an odd year cycle, and so that makes your life a little easier, but we're later than we often are just because of COVID in the midst of it. I also mentioned that again because the answer is ultimately your census data was not real great, as was nobody's census data real great. But it is what it is, and we're gonna operate under it. The other thing I'll advise you is I'm driving out here and I see the 20 new subdivisions that are going up. None of that mattered in the discussion we were doing. It was what was the answers as of 2020, and so some of these things you're going to already see and be like, oh man, we're going to get so out of whack on that within 2 years, or maybe today, but it doesn't matter. It was based on the 2020 data. So, where were we? Where were we in 2010? So this is what our map had looked like. This is your single member districts. Those tiny little dots are where you all live in your single member districts. Okay, and that's what it was in 2010. So where were we on our numbers in 2010? Well, you can see on this slide that in 2010, the numbers were between 6 and 7 was our biggest and our smallest population districts, and you can see on the bottom we had a deviation of about 8%. Great. In 2010, life was good. So what do? We take our 2020 data and we plug it into our 2010 map, and now we're not so good. So now you see on your data between your population had a little bit of growth, and you can see that your District 6 and your District 7 are your small and your big, and oh yeah, now we're out by 90%. So yeah, you were redistricting. All right, that was the conversation I had with the board a while back in February. I think it was February. We had that meeting. And so you at that point in time said, you know what, we're going to go ahead and appoint a RAC committee. Who are going to be the individuals who are going to work with the demographers and come up with a plan. So what was just kind of their criteria and your criteria when we're looking at this again, we have to have the total deviation between the largest and the smallest districts is going to have to be within 10%. So when we're mucking with the lines, we're going to have everybody within 10% deviation. We're trying to get as equal to population as possible. You will see we're not, that's not the ultimate number where we totally ended up. We're within 10%, but it's not like 2%. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which I'll talk about a little bit. You need to be compact and contiguous and try to avoid the county election precincts. That's just a general standard that we want to operate under. We have to, the big picture, why are we doing this? Why do we even have single member districts? Obviously, it's about there were lawsuits that were done because of race and voting on the race. And so we have to try to avoid retrogression of minority voting rights. Wasn't even remotely an issue. As you all probably know of your population, just you are a minority majority population anyway. And so honestly, trying to get minority majority single member districts was the least of our concerns. That's just how your numbers are. So it wasn't something we really had to spend a whole lot of difficult time trying to figure out. Again, you want to have as easily identifiable boundaries as possible. We want to try to preserve everybody being in their spot. The plan that was presented to you does preserve everybody being in your spot. And we try to, and then you just look at your community and make sure we're trying to do it the same. That number 3 thing is oftentimes not a really big deal. I will tell you what, it was a lot of the conversation that your RAC committee spent time on. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And I do want to recognize your RAC committee. These were the individuals that each of you had asked somebody to do it, and these are the individuals who stepped up, spent a night of their life getting to play with a bunch of maps with me and a demographer, and came up with a plan. And I know at least one gentleman is here, 2. Okay, it's been a while, and so you all should thank them. Honestly, they did all the hard work, and so I'm going to recognize them. And I will tell you, I have done redistricting this 2-year cycle with many districts. I was thinking about how many days, either 6 or 7. This was the most effort that was done by the RAC committee because the initial plans we got, we didn't really like. which is okay, because the demographer just does it by a number and tries to come up with a number that works, but because of some uniqueness in your community, and because, big picture, because you have an unfortunate situation where we have to do things by census blocks, which we have no control over. That's what the federal government does, and they create census blocks, and you cannot break a census block. And you've got some bad census blocks. They're not bad, but they're either big and they're right on the line, and it created a lot of difficulty with every time we would move a line, because it has to be the whole block. Instead of just getting, 20 people, you end up getting 70 people, and then that throws everything off. So that was the difficulty that your group had, was trying to deal with the census blocks. So without further ado, so what did they come up with? Well, this is the plan that is being presented to you of the map, which honestly looks very similar in shapes. It's going to be a little different, but in general it looks very similar in shape to the map that you are currently under. And that's what your RAC committee spent a lot of time trying to figure out. In particular, I remember having a lot of discussions that with 4 and 2 and the lake and how that played into it, and spending a lot of time figuring out that, because there was a strong feeling by the RAC that we wanted to try to keep that community within 4. And the original maps that had been presented by the demographers, again, who don't know you all for anything and don't know who is where or who lives with whom, the numbers made it easier to have it on the other side of the lake. And so we spent a whole lot of time basically undoing the maps that they presented to us and coming up to the new map. And so for the committee, they felt like this was the most consistent with what you currently had, did the best job of keeping groupings together that made sense to be kept together, kept all of you in your single member district. We had a little bit of there was not a problem, but every once in a while I was like, oh, but we can't move that line. That's going to create a problem. And so this is what they came up with to come up with that. So, on the numbers, where are we? So this is what I said, right? 10 is our number that we can reach. And you can see on this that we got below 10, but not a lot below 10. We're at 9.6. That's legally acceptable. Okay? The maps that we had started with were lower than that. Now, what's the advantage of having a number lower than that? Everybody's vote is more equal then, right? I mean, you want to have the same number of people roughly, and you see that we were shooting for having 8,895 people in every single member district. You're never going to come up exactly. But that was the give and take. And so we're within the legal confines. And because the lines fitting more of where you were, and being more consistent with what your population is, this was the map that after a couple of hours, frankly, I think we were there, that we were doing all that, that the committee altogether felt like was the best option for the single member districts for moving forward. With all that conversation, if either of the single member district members feel a desire to share anything that I haven't said about the discussion or the process, please do.
Well stated, sir. Appreciate it.
I have nothing further to add.
Okay. Again, they were wonderful. They really took it seriously. I mean, that we undid what was presented to create better plans, which anytime you move a line means you're going to move 5 other lines. They did a great job. They did an excellent job. So, with that, this, like I said, that's the main map. That's our numbers. We're still fine. We still have the same number of minority, majority, single member districts, which we looked at. Again, it was so not really an issue just because your population made that not really much of an issue we had to spend time with. But we did look at that. We're still within those numbers. And then the rest of the slides, just for y'all's sake and for viewing, and I'm not going to really talk about it a lot, are a little bit more blown up so you can see each of the single member districts that you're in, so you can see your lines a little bit better than it was before. And so I'm not going to spend any time talking about that, but that's what the rest of the slides are, and each of you as the board members have those items. The last thing, if the board is in agreement with what was presented to you tonight by the single member district, or excuse me, by the RAC committee, There's a resolution that has been drafted for you, which you just need to adopt this evening, which is honestly just says the RAC committee got together on that date, they're making the recommendation to you all tonight, and attaching this map on the back side of it. This information will be sent to the Bear County voting elections office so that all that gets set up for your next election.
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Question?
Yes?
So being that this is so close to 10%,
Mhm.
and knowing that everybody doesn't fill out the census,
Mhm.
how do you, this is kind of a multi-question, how or when do you know that the presence of people that did not fill out the census, is it large enough numbers that would affect this?
The legal answer, right, and I get to live in my ivory tower every once in a while, which is a nice place to live, is my numbers are my numbers, and it's not, I can't do anything even if I know that they're not accurate because I live in the community and I know. The numbers are the numbers, and that is legally what we have to operate under. The flip side argument is, frankly, we may already be out of the 10% because of new builds in the last year and a half, and where you have new rooftops and however many people moved into that. But the legal answer is, all we can operate under is the census data, which, took us until late in the summer of 2021, that we finally got that, whereas normally we get it in the spring. And again, census data is always wrong. I mean, even in the best of years, it's bad. It was just exceptionally bad under
Right.
COVID. I mean, it just was. But again, I mean, nobody knows what those right numbers are, and we're not gonna guess. And so we all, from local school districts all the way to how they've done the federal guidelines, right? Numbers right or wrong, they are what they are. And you may have even heard some things on the news I recently was hearing, there are some states who probably missed out on entire new House of Representative members because of the undercount.
Yeah,
But it is what it is, and we can't fix it.
right, thank you very much.
So even with the growth that we have currently, we still have to wait till the next census to capture that growth?
Correct. And let me tell you, 2030, you will be redistricting. As does everybody, right? I mean, even small districts, every district we represent who has a single member district, which is, as I said to you the last time, there's a swath that kind of runs east of San Antonio, all around the bottom side of San Antonio, all the way to the west side of San Antonio. Almost every single district has a single member district set up in that area because of LULAC lawsuits back in the 90s. And that's just what it is. I mean, that's okay, that's what it is. And every single one of them has to redistrict every 10 years. It's just, there's enough shift of population, and yeah, I mean, you all, honestly, if we did a new census today, you all would probably already need to do redistricting again. Because you just have that much growth happening, as you all know better than I do. Except every time I drive out, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know that subdivision was already going. So,
Can you get us a detailed map with like streets on it or someone with actual, okay.
we get a little more detailed. I will tell you, because we have fights with the elections, photographers don't get it street by street by street. They don't issue it that way, so before you ask me to ask them, I'm just gonna warn you. Big picture, we can get the main streets, and we can generally get most of them, especially where we have a concern, but just when I have a county a little south of Bear County who's really unhappy with us about that answer right now. All right, well, I appreciate it. It's nice to get to come and talk to boards without them yelling at me and being mad because I'm bringing nothing but bad news. So if any of y'all are going to SLI, I hope I personally am speaking at an event down there, and we're having a happy hour with TASB, and we hope to see you all there if you're going to be down there.
I'll be there.
All righty, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, appreciate it.
Mr. President, I recommend that the board adopt a board resolution approving the single-member district redistricting plan proposed and recommended to the board by the Redistricting Advisory Committee, and move that the resolution be included in the official minutes of this meeting.
We have a recommendation from the superintendent to approve the board resolution approving the single member district redistricting plan proposed and recommended to the board by the Redistricting Advisory Committee, and move that the resolution be included in the official minutes of this meeting. Do I have a motion?
I move.
I have a motion from Claudia Barrientos and a second from Dale Brazil. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. But before we move on, we do have a couple of the RAC committees here. I would like to personally thank them. We have Jonathan Nix, and we have my wife, Robin Massengale, here. And thank you all for all y'all's hard work, and well appreciated. So
Yes,
it's
thank
not
you.
something that you get paid to do, but we do need your services, so thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
All right, with that, we will move on to item 7, goal setting workshop. Mr. Visconti.
Yes, sir. Trustees, in your miscellaneous packet, you'll see a copy of the slide deck that we'll review with the board this evening. The slide deck is broken into our 3 major departments. Well, 3 major and one's broken into 2. But we'll hear from our curriculum instruction and assessment department, Dr. Shannon Fuller first, and then we'll move into our student and community engagement department. Tonight we'll be hearing from Mr. Shane McKay in his new role, supported by Ms. Colas, certainly.
on the fire, huh?
Right in. Then we'll move into operations and support services, the OSS part of BOSS, which Stevie Gonzalez will share with the board. And then we'll close with the business aspect of our operation, and our CFO, Judy Burns, will provide the board with an overview of our financial position. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Fuller to get us started. And you can follow along either on the monitor or in your miscellaneous packet. And feel free to stop and ask questions anywhere along the way. It's a conversation.
Good evening, President Massengale, Mr. Giscano, Board of Trustees. Happy to see you guys this evening. So I get to kick off. So I get everything started. I get to try out all the technology first, sorry. So the clicker's not working. All right, so we're going to start this evening. What I'm going to do is give you an overview of really the big things that we're going to be focusing on next year. It's not all inclusive of everything, but just really give you a highlight of some of the big things that we're going to be focusing on, and or give you an update on some of the big things that we have been focusing on and that we will continue to focus on. So really, not much is going to be new tonight that I'm going to be sharing with you. It's going to be a lot of updates with just a few new things sprinkled in. So the first thing should look very familiar. It's our continuous growth process. You know that each year we engage all throughout the year in our continuous growth process. This is our goal cascade, and it starts tonight with you. You all set your board goal tonight, and that kicks off our process throughout the district. And then we cascade that goal and your vision throughout the district, down from the district then goals, then the sub-department goals, the campus goals, and then those cascade down to staff and then down ultimately to our student goals. And so it is really important to us that all throughout our district, we are aligned to your vision and the community vision for our students and our district. And so this year, not much is changing with our CG process, as we affectionately call it, CG. But one of the things that we are changing is, instead of writing a goal and then a strategy where we write it for the entire year, we are going to be writing it by a quarter. And so we're gonna break it down. One of the things that we got feedback from was that our campuses and departments said, you know, we really want to be able to break that down and monitor it by quarter instead of by the whole year, and really look to see, okay, if I broke down a goal and said I want to make this much by the first quarter, this much by the second quarter, this much, and so we're going to be able to let them write goals and be able to monitor them by quarters now, if that's something that they'd like to do. So that's one update that we're going to be providing for them. It'll give them some flexibility and then be able to monitor it in real time. So that's kind of going to kick off our big picture tonight, and so that's where we're starting with. The next thing that we're moving into is we've talked for about the last 7 years about our curriculum management plan. And that's what we have really worked on to ensure that we have high quality curriculum, instruction, and learning in every classroom throughout every building in our district. And so as we've evolved through that, and you've heard our plans over the past 7 years, you've heard that we've talked a lot about that we want to ensure that no matter whose classroom that you go into, and no matter what building that you go into, that we reduce the variability and we ensure that everybody receives the high quality instruction and learning, no matter what classroom that they go into or what teacher they have, whether it's a first year zero teacher or the 30-year veteran teacher, that we make sure that our students have the best learning experiences possible. And so in order to do that, we've really worked on to make sure that they have the best curriculum for every classroom, as well as looking at the instructional materials that we provide them. That teachers have high quality instructional materials that they can turnkey, meaning they can take them and they can turn them around and implement them in the classroom with very little anything required in order to do that. They can read them, but everything's provided for them that's necessary. Now, if I'm a very veteran teacher or a teacher that's very, very seasoned and feel very comfortable, and I have a great history of success, I can add to that, I can change it, I can do what I need to make sure that my students have what they need. But if I'm unsure, I have a plan there that tells me exactly what to do. And so we've worked really hard to make sure that teachers have that, where we are working really hard to make sure that they have what they need, so that it really also doesn't require them to do a lot outside of school, that they have what they need and they can do what they need to do during the school day. And so the 4 big levers that we've been pushing on and that you've heard about are high quality lesson planning, weekly collaborative planning, instructional leadership team, and classroom visits. And so our focus will continue on these 4 big systems this next year. We will continue to talk about these during our job life. We'll continue to give principals time to plan around these. And then each month we will follow up to talk about how are they working, giving them time to collaborate together and make sure that they are functioning really well on each campus. In addition, we're commissioning an audit from outside that will be coming in, and they'll be conducting this audit through from TASB. This audit will be conducted in October, and they'll be coming in for 4 days. The purpose of this audit is to see to what degree of what I just said is happening to fruition, right? To what degree is what we are saying is happening, that teachers have what they need, students are learning at the high degree that we want them to in classrooms. And then getting feedback from the community, getting feedback from teachers, getting feedback from principals. And so we have that outside perspective to see to what degree, and then helping give us feedback so that we can make a plan for next steps, and we can calibrate what we have planned versus the feedback that we get, so that we can ensure that we are preparing and providing the very best for our teachers and staff so that they have what they need to ensure high quality learning in every classroom.
I have a quick question.
Yes,
For
ma'am.
new teachers, you're saying that that the veteran teacher knows what to do, blah, 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 and then the other section of it is something for new teachers that they can take and automatically put it to use. So, and it's self-explanatory more or less, but when a new teacher starts, do they have some kind of orientation that lets them know that this is available and how to use it?
Again, feel like getting ahead. Yes.
Sorry.
No, that's right, yes, we do. We have a new teacher PD Academy, and it will go over everything that will train them on how to use the resources, where they're housed, and then I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about a new resource that we're gonna be bringing in, that we're gonna train all of our secondary math teachers in as well. But yes, we do have that to ensure. We train everybody, including our veteran teachers, because the materials are available to everybody. We want everyone to use them. Everybody can pick and choose what they use from them depending on what they need.
I got you. Thank you so much.
So the brand new teacher might read it word for word, and they might have it as a script, and the veteran teacher who has success might pick a couple questions, might pick this activity, but supplement it with something else, and so there's some.
Wow, okay, awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you
absolutely.
so much.
Quick question.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
know when we think of resources, we think of, material things. Is mental health and part of that? Because I know with recent events and just COVID and just everything.
That's coming up too.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. Yes, and so I'm going to talk about how we embed social emotional learning into every lesson, in every unit. Absolutely. And for that purpose.
As well for
provide
the
support.
teachers though, right? That's what I'm talking about. Some of our teachers, which I'm sure you're aware, a lot are overwhelmed. I guess that's one of my concerns. I know our students are very well taken care of, but we also have to think about our teachers and staff and you guys. I mean, we all have lives and so.
Well, it's twofold. One of the ways that we're wanting to take care of our teachers is ensure that they have what they need,
Right.
so that they don't have to spend as much time out of the school day. They can have a balance between work and life. They can go home and get a break, that we reduce their stress, that we hopefully help them feel, equipped, successful, and confident in the work that they do. And so that's one way that we're doing that. As well as through the social emotional learning, what we've done is, and I'm going to talk about it just a bit, but I'll just talk about it right now, is that in each unit, we have built in our, it's founded on CASTLE, which is a social emotional framework, but we have built in the CASTLE framework for every single unit, for every single content area. And so the teachers just can pick it up, and it already is built in for how they can, they don't have to do something different. So when they're doing a welcome activity in their class, like they would do for any class, right? How do you do that in such a way that you help them do it in an engaging way that meets their social emotional needs? How do you help them do an optimistic closure in such a way that you're helping them do it in a way that also meets their social emotional needs? So we embed it to where they're doing it within the content. It's not something separate and apart. So was what we've heard from teachers is, I don't have time to do something different, right? But if I can do it in context of when I'm teaching long division, if I can talk about how do we get along, how do I feel about it, how do I structure it in that way so that I can take care of the social emotional aspects as well as the content, that's the way that we've structured it for them. We've given them sentence stems, questions, and how to structure their lessons so that they can meet both at the same time.
Okay.
We were able to pilot a program this year at the high school in partnership with the CAS network, where we did have a community and schools counselor, mental health counselor on staff. And we were really trying to see, if made available in an anonymous way, would staff take advantage of it. And in addition to being available for one-to-one support, which over 40 staff members did take advantage of that just at the high school, which tells us that it is a need, as you're referring to. But the counselor also did provide a lot of tools and resources and lessons for adults. So this particular counselor was available for adults specifically. So working with community and schools, working with other partners like the Anti-Medical Center, all of those who support mental health are realizing that they've got to push support into communities as opposed to waiting for communities to come to them. So that's really what the conversation has really revolved around this past year, is how can they work together along with school districts and employers to really look at areas of the city where maybe those resources aren't as accessible and set up shop So we're actively working with all of those partners to see how we can expand the support that we're able to provide through that pilot, because certainly in the short term, it's an absolute need.
Thank you.
So appreciate you asking
Yes,
the
thank
question.
you so much.
Any other questions about it? So along the same vein, so we're talking about high-quality instructional materials. One of the things that we know is that when we provide high-quality instructional materials along with our curriculum to teachers, they feel more equipped and are more successful in their classroom with their instruction. And so we are piloting next year a math curriculum, sixth grade through Algebra 2. It's a new math instructional material, and it's through Carnegie Learning, and it is a turnkey, if you will, instructional material. So it's very robust. It has lesson plans, questions. It has just about everything that a teacher would need in a format that is very user-friendly, so that they can just take it and teach from it, as well as pick and choose from the lesson that they would, what if a component that they would need, or questions, or they might use part of the lesson that they would need. And so the teachers were able to look at that late spring to see, give us some input, like, is this something you think that could help you? And we overwhelmingly got some really good feedback about it, and so we contacted them and asked them if we could be a part of the use of it. And so we were granted that access. So we're very excited about piloting that next year in our math. And so we're going to be working with them to really look at then how do you take those lessons, since you're not having to really write them, and how do you take them and really focus on the implementation, so that we're really focused on student learning. And all the teacher has to really focus on is, what am I doing in the teaching? So when I get into that weekly planning with my teammates, I'm really talking about, what am I going to be teaching on Tuesday, and what are students going to be learning? And so we don't have to be talking about, we're talking about how, but what are the students going to be, what am I going to be teaching them, and then what are the students going to be doing as a result? And so that focus, we feel like, will really help reduce the workload and stress of teachers, as a lot of it will be provided through the instructional materials. So we're excited about that. It will be provided to them both in print and hard copies. So they'll be able to have both access, so they can have a print copy, and they can also access it from home, so it'll be easily accessible. And then we're continuing to bolster all of our instructional materials in all of our content areas.
Just to add to that, we did a pilot this year with 6th and 9th grade math around instructional planning. And what we learned throughout the year was, when we were able to provide teachers with that toolkit that was already curated, and a team of teachers could really focus on individually internalizing that and preparing it for my students, and then calibrate with one another to make sure that we were using the same vocabulary, that we were teaching it accurately, and that we knew how to use the materials that came with it, that we saw less variability. That in those classrooms, it didn't matter if they were a one-year teacher or a 30-year veteran, every kid got the right stuff, the good stuff, delivered well. When we didn't provide that content curated, those teachers had to do research on what, they had to explore all of the resources available to them, pick and choose the ones they thought in their interpretation were the best. They spend hours doing that and never really get into, now how am I going to execute it? And we found that in those classrooms, there was a lot of variability and inconsistency. And teachers were working super hard, but it wasn't resulting in really high level execution. So our partner from RSSP, who helped us do this pilot this year, said it's kind of like having a race car driver, where you expect a race car driver to build the car and drive the car. You can't expect all drivers to do that very well. You got a team that builds it, he can advise on it, but really his job is to drive it really well. And that's a masterful art that takes all of his time and attention. So in education, we like to make them build a car and drive the car, and they never do either one really well. Just not enough time in life, right? So this is what we learned from that pilot. We're expanding it to all math through geometry. And we hope, our plan is, We're gonna start prepping English language arts reading this year for implementation the following year, while the following year, we're gonna be prepping science and social studies for the following year, so that all core academic content will have this nice curated curriculum resource. That then as a team, we change the nature of their work. You're no longer doing all this research and building of the thing. You're preparing to execute the thing. So the shift in the way they're using their time. It's gonna take some training.
Yeah.
It's gonna take some practice. It's not gonna take away the defined autonomy that the veteran teacher has earned.
Right.
Right? They're still gonna be able to adapt it to their personality and their individual children they serve this period to the next, or this year to the next. So it doesn't take, it's not like such a cookie cutter script that we take that away, but everybody anchors from that foundation and then executes from there.
I really like that idea because it feels like to me sometimes that there's so much paperwork and so much preparation and so much, like you said, research that teachers can't really get to the meat of the matter and get excited about introducing that in the classroom because they're just so burnt out on all of this preparation and all of this, you know, paperwork and research and stuff. I think it's exciting to be able to get the information quickly and be able to get excited about, you know, sharing it with your students. So I'm super excited to see what.
Well, here's the reality. Most elementary teachers teach all 4 subjects in a day.
Yeah.
There are teachers in the secondary level that teach, well, I'm an English teacher, but I teach English 1, I teach English 2, I teach English 3 AP, and I proctor a dual credit English class. Those are 4 different subjects. So 4 different textbooks, 4 curriculum models, 4 assessment systems,
Yeah.
all reading different novels possibly.
Yeah.
So how do you do that if you've got to do all the creation of the thing as well as the execution of the instruction of the thing? And it's just been the way that we've always operated in education, and it's just not sustainable or as effective. And we're very excited about the effects that we saw in 6th and 9th grade math this year.
Yeah.
And we're really optimistic about the path forward. And so we just wanted you guys to know that that's some lesson learned and some priorities, kind of a big shift that we're making in curriculum instruction. And we're getting really good feedback from our staff about that, really good feedback.
I'm so glad.
Let me ask you a question now. On the curriculum, is it a timeline in teaching this curriculum? Is it a pace? What do you do with the kids that fall off? How are we addressing them, you know, that can't keep up with the pace?
Yeah. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Okay. So it is an overall timeline, so you have like a tier 1, like everybody follows. And so if kids can't keep up, our goal is that most of them do it, that we teach it in such a way the first time, that's what our goal is that we capture more kids that are learning it the first time around so we don't have to reteach as much. And that's what we're finding is when we are planning in this way that more kids are able to be successful the first time around. But if in the event that they're not, then we have reteach. So we plan in reteach and spiraling reteach throughout the next couple weeks so that kids can continue to learn and continue to practice on that skill. And then if they continue to fall behind, then we have what's called tier 2, and where we provide support during the school day. And then if they continue to fall behind, then we have what's called tier 3. And so we just continue to provide more and more intensive support. But our goal is to capture as much as possible the first time and then provide that reteaching and spiraling, because we know that not everybody gets it immediately.
Of course, that's the point I'm making, yeah. But that's good, so you have a tier, a reteach.
We
Okay.
reteach.
And Mr. Mulkey,
And lots of practice.
those tiered supports are in addition to, so it's not like if they're
Right.
not successful with tier 1, we take them out and we put them in tier 2. Tier 2 is in addition to the instruction that's being spiraled
They
and
don't
taught
miss.
for all kids. They get this additional, sometimes it looks like small group support with the
Okay,
teacher.
yeah.
And then if that's not enough, in addition to that, the whole group, the small group, they'll get in additional in the school day, tier 3, or sometimes outside the school day. But they get all of them at the same time until that progress is.
Gotcha. Okay, that's right, make sure we're servicing all the kids, you know, we just don't wanna move at a pace and drop behind some of them, you know, but that's good. Thank you.
What about the flip side of that coin, the kids that get it really quick, how do you keep their interest and from them creating, you know, an issue or not being bored in the class because they've got it quick? What are y'all doing for those kids?
Yep, and so we have enrichment, and so we work with they'll continue to move on. And so where kids might continue to, where we might do a reteach, then we'll give them an enrichment and or a different activity that will give them what we call on our scale a level 5. So we'll push them up to like a level 5, where we'll give them an opportunity to show us what they know in a different way, or they can be able to show us something in an inventive way, something, it's not necessarily in a different grade level, but in a more creative or maybe branching it into a different content area, or making it in a different connection to another standard or something like that. And so they'll have that opportunity.
So they'll still be in the same class?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
And the content, they won't move ahead in the content, they'll just learn the content. Or demonstrate mastery of the content in a more deeper, transferable way that is maybe unfamiliar to the way it was taught.
Yep.
So did you learn this in such a way that you could actually apply it in an
Yep, into
unfamiliar
something else.
situation? So they'll get to explore in a more creative, more authentic way than the other students, because they've demonstrated proficiency at the level of proficiency. Now they can push that understanding of the skills and content at a deeper level. So they won't be suppressed and say, well, you made it, now you can just go help your buddies. No, you get to play with this skill and content even deeper. So maybe we were welding 2 sticks together, you might actually get to build a car. Right, so still welding, but everybody's still trying to figure out how to weld 2 pieces of iron together.
Right.
You're getting to build a 3-dimensional object. Does that make sense? That's kind of the concept. So level 5s are for every skill and concept are identified. What are the characteristics of a level 5? Very few kids get there, but when they're proficient, they get to play with level 5.
And the teachers have already identified what a level 5 would look like for every standard, and kids know. So if Mr. Siscano is already mastered that standard, and he is able to work on an enrichment thing, he knows, okay, these are some other things that I can do to challenge myself.
That happens frequently. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good question.
I'm just concerned, instead of every kid getting 50 math problems, the smarter ones get 100, just do
Yes,
more work,
no.
so.
We're not about
Not
doing more, but
yeah.
different.
Exactly, yeah, that makes sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's good
yes,
to know.
yes. Any other questions for anyone?
I did, I was trying to see if mine was gonna be answered, but mine is a little more global. You said it was gonna be a pilot, right?
Yes.
Okay, and it's just the pilot is gonna be the math part, right?
Yes, math,
Okay.
6 through algebra 2.
Right, so that's what you're piloting.
Mhm.
And so the other classes will, I'm assuming, it's you piloting it because y'all studied another model, and I was just curious how that other model did, in terms of the kids learning, and testing and those kinds of things, the outcomes of why you would be teaching in the first place. So I'm just curious how that, what led you to take this particular thing and to pilot it?
It's kind of an evolution, if you will. So when we met with the teachers this year, we really did the lesson study with them, and we listened to kind of, as we were working with the lesson study and planning with them, we listened to kind of what are your pain points, if you will, and what are some things that you need. And one of the things that they struggled the most with is curating the lessons.
Okay.
And so we have a resource, and we have actually a couple resources, but what they asked for was, we would really like one succinct resource. And so, and we have more like 2, if you will. So they asked for one succinct that kind of had everything in it. So we said, okay, well, let us see what we can do. So we went out to see if we could find something that we felt like would meet their needs. And so we were able to find this Carnegie Learning that met the needs of what they were wanting. That is that one resource with sort of, if you will, all-inclusive of everything in it. So we brought it to them and showed it to them and said, okay, here's a possibility. It's aligned to the standards. It's got questioning. It's got assessment. It has the lesson in it. It's got all the components in it that you are wanting. Is this something to meet your needs? And, for the most part, everybody said, yes, this is what we were wanting. We only have a sample, but this is what they wanted. And so that's why we said, okay, well, so we asked if we could, because we asked to be a part of it, so we asked to be a part of it, and we were granted access. So,
Right. And so the point is that when you finish that pilot process, and if this does meets more than what your expectations are, then you will use the same type of pilot for the other classes as well, right?
yes,
That's
so
the
then
point.
we have an opportunity to look at a resource like that for K through 5.
Mhm.
And any other content area. Now, part of the trick is finding something that is of high quality, but if there is something that's available, then yes, looking for something that we can replicate that would meet the same kind of needs that this one does.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this one, I guess, I'm assuming it's a company that we're using, doesn't provide, it only provides, gotcha,
6 through 12.
Oh.
I mean, 6 through Algebra 2.
gotcha,
We're using everything that they provide.
gotcha,
Mhm. For now.
for now.
But they didn't provide this a couple, like 2 years
Yeah,
ago, so you never know, and there's other options. All right, so moving on, the next thing I want to talk to you about is, now we're going to move into the social and emotional aspect part of it. So, in curriculum instruction, we believe in teaching the whole child, right? So we talked about the academic aspect. Now we're going to talk about the social and emotional and behavior aspect of it. And so you have heard us talk about EC Cares for many years. And we've talked about EC Cares, and then you've kind of heard about RTI, and then you've heard about tier 1, 2, and 3 behavior supports, and all the different things. And then you've heard about CIA. And so one of the things that we are, I guess, for a better lack of a better word, kind of rebranding, is we are going to say that EC Cares is the big umbrella that goes over everything that has to do with social, emotional, and behavior, the aspects, all right? Because EC cares about students' learning. And so our goal is to make sure that we know that if students show up to us and their social and emotional needs are met, then they are set up for learning. We know that if students' needs are not met social and emotionally, they don't have a good day, behavior gets in the way, they're hungry, they don't have the basic needs. And so when they sit down in that chair to learn, they can't focus. They're typically act out in some way or another for attention, for need, or something. And so we know that that is not a win-win situation for the classroom, for the student, for anybody. And so we're rebranding the term EC Cares, not necessarily just to mean trauma, or students that have trauma, but that all social and emotional needs of students. And so up here, what we have for you is it's going to include our comprehensive guidance program. It's going to include everything from our social and emotional learning that we talked about, where we have those purposeful instructions that we give every day through our core content areas that are embedded in reading and writing and math and science and social studies, because Roland and Mr. Massengale have to learn how to cooperate and get along together and be in a cooperative group together, because we know that in the real world, we have to have good citizens that know how to get along and communicate well together and have high EQ. And so in order to do that, we have to set these things up in the classroom, not just reading, writing, math, and social studies, right? But we have to teach them how to get along together, how to communicate, how to interact, and all of those things. And so that's everything that we do through social emotional learning. And so all of those things, to include trauma, to include the tier 2 and tier 3 behaviors when we know that our students really, really need those extra supports, all of that will be a part of EC Cares. And we instituted this year comprehensive case management, because we know that we want to make sure that every student who has very, very essential needs is a part of comprehensive case management, and they have a case manager. So if we have a student who has those needs, that they are assigned a case manager on a campus. And that case manager is going to manage their academic and or behavioral needs to ensure that we are programming for whatever that student needs, whether it's academics, behavior, or both. And so that those interventions happen either throughout the day and or before or after school, and a combination of all of the above to make sure that those students have what they need. So that comprehensive case management is that coordination of efforts that we talked about, because we have lots of people on that comprehensive case management team. And so we were fortunate enough to put that program facilitator position in place several years ago, and that program facilitator is the gatekeeper of that process. And they bring all the people together that help to coordinate that comprehensive case management, from CIA to our counselors, to assistant principals, to our police officers, to any teachers, community members, anybody that's going to be a case manager and that's going to be a part of that team is going to be a part of that comprehensive case management that program facilitators can help facilitate. So that's something that is continuing to evolve. Because we know the better job that we do coordinating that and coordinating our efforts with all the players involved, the better that we can make sure that we ensure that our students' services are aligned, and we really make sure that they get what they need. So that's really our goal. We really set that foundation this year, and we're going to continue to refine and improve those services next year.
So the structure that we put in place is trying to get at, as Dr. Fuller said, if kids' social and emotional needs are not met, they can't get to the learning. And if they're not met over time, it tends to show up in ways that escalate, right? They act out, they behave in ways that are unproductive for themselves and for other students in the classroom and in the school. And so what we've learned is that sometimes in the past, before we had a structure like this, we might learn of a student who maybe lost a parent, or someone a divorce at home, or went through some sort of trauma, some change, and they're starting to act differently in school, and we visit with them. We maybe administer some discipline, maybe the counselor visits with them a few times, and then we pretend they're all magically fixed, when in reality, that never goes away. And if there's not support in real time and sustained over time, the student can regress at any point in time. So case management is about identifying that Ginger's going through some problems. We find out what the supports are that she needs. We provide as a team that support, and keep in mind part of that team is a communities and schools site manager. Every school in our system has a community and school site manager. Community and schools counselors are trained, and they have access to the entire network in the entire city of San Antonio of profit and nonprofit organizations that are child serving. They can provide family support, they can provide support for the child, in all kinds of, every area, medical care, food insecurity, trauma, drug or alcohol abuse, adult or family violence, you name it. And then we can ensure that we make the connection, and then the case manager monitors to make sure that it's happening and that it's having the intended effect, and that we're starting to see some progress from Ginger in the school. And then we kind of gradually release, but we keep an eye on it. We don't, she's always forever going to be in our case management roster until she's done with East Central ISD. And when we do that well, we don't see those things escalate to where she withdraws, where she acts out, where she drops out, or worse, escalates to other kinds of behaviors that we're unfortunately seeing in the world, right? So if we do this really well, this is proactive. This is really giving kids what they need. This is really giving teachers the support they need with kids who are struggling. And you gotta remember, teachers have 22 kids at the elementary level. A high school teacher might have 180 kids in a day. They can't meet all of those needs. The system has to provide that support for the whole child. And if we do that well, we see more students thrive. We see less unproductive behaviors. And we have to deal with the punishment aspect of our response a whole lot less. Because behaviors, like academics, are learned. So they can also be changed. Right? So it's a lack of skill when kids don't know how to cope. It's a lack of skill. It's a lack of skill when adults don't know how to cope. And or there's some issues with the trauma that has affected them chemically and emotionally, right? So we have to be able to serve that, in addition to 6th through geometry math. So it's a yes and. And so when I started teaching 25 years ago, all I had to do was teach science. And all the system had to do was teach reading, writing, and get on down the road. Parents do the rest. Well, that's not the world we live in today. So we've had to design our infrastructure such that we're educating the whole child. And this is how we're trying to get at it. Long way to go. This is year, really 4 of this evolution. Year 2 of case management is part of that evolution, but we've been trying to get at this thing and chip at the rock for a while. But we're really excited about the progress we've made, the partnerships we've been able to assemble with organizations like Community in Schools, the UP partnership, Diplomas, My Brother's Keeper. I mean, we're connected because we have to be. The Ecumenical Center. So, you know, this is just the next evolution. We feel like we're getting tighter and becoming more aware as a system of how to do this better. And this next year, it's going to be better than the current year and the year before that. But it's essential. Like, without this, all the academic stuff really doesn't matter.
Has there ever been a point, like, when they get to high school that they just refuse any sort of, like, assistance, or, I mean, I know there's some kids that,
I
what do
mean,
we do in that case?
what we see happen more often is when it's gone unsupported for an extended amount of time, there's also a bunch of distrust. There's also a lack of confidence that you really care or that you're really here to support. And it takes a lot longer to make that connection and earn that trust. If you can support.
So we try to catch those kids.
Yeah.
Younger.
When you can catch them younger, or you can catch them at the time when something's changed and all of that trust hadn't been fractured and that lack of confidence hasn't been broken, then you can really make a difference pretty quickly. It's when it's gone unserved, if you will, for a period of time. It's stuck. It's become new habits and behaviors and a new disposition that it's going to take more time to unstick,
Well,
right?
and if when they get to high school, because sometimes there's other things that'll come up, right? There might be an event that would happen, then another event might happen. When another event happens, if there is that trust in that relationship and that strong, that support system, then they come to those adults and that support system for help. And so that's why we want to set that up, so that we are there for that support system.
And the case manager could be anybody, or is it gonna be a specific?
It'll be a specific person that's that's a part of that team.
Which could be made up of several people in different roles in the
Yeah.
system.
No, I was just gonna, I'm excited to hear this because case management, I worked in a hospital.
Yes.
And case management with a multidisciplinary team affects the outcome
Yep.
of the patient. You start with everybody, it's a large safety net, you start with the patient is admitted, and they're there when the patient is discharged. And so that's kind of how I was looking at that, and so that's really great. And it's not exceptional burden on any one member of the team. The whole team has the approach and the same goal to try to,
It is a multidisciplinary team,
yeah.
exactly what you said.
This really makes me happy because Chloe has struggled this year with kids in her class, and they have something, from 2 to 10, we've always learned through the daycare that something has happened that they can't process, that they can't handle, so they spew it out on everybody that's happy, or, you know, it sounds so rough, but it's facts. I mean, it's different now than when we were young. Kids are mean, kids are mean. And it's hard when you know that they have something and you
Yeah.
want to help them,
Yeah.
and you understand, but then they're doing it to other children that are there to learn, and then the teachers have to deal with that. That's frustrating.
What's really nice is that you're getting down to the individual student, because I remember several years ago, it's been quite a few, that I went to a leadership or whatever, and the program was about, how do we define who's struggling, whatever, but it was so broad,
Yes. Yes.
And my question was, well, how do you find out that it's actually Sally Jones? Well, they didn't. They just had it in little groups, or kind of getting close. But today, to find out that you literally can target that child or student is just, it's very exciting to know that you can actually get to an individualized care.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's great, kind of goes along with what Ginger's saying, if you can actually bring something to that specific
Absolutely.
child instead of it being a group, and that's the way it was a long time ago, so I asked that question. So
Absolutely.
This is nice to see.
Good.
Last question I promise.
Yeah.
So transfers that come in, I know most of the time, and there's several reasons why they transfer into the district, but do we look at their, okay,
Yeah, when we review the records that we're able to compile if we see that there's, been some trauma, or there's been some support
Who's only on those kids?
that they've been provided in their previous school system. And it's not uncommon that we connect a kid to case management day one. Or in the past, we would have, if it was a trauma, child who experienced trauma, we connect them to EC Cares. Of course, again, we're rebranding, right? EC Cares isn't just trauma. EC Cares is the entire umbrella. Case management is the mechanism. It's the team-based, multidisciplinary, team-based structure at the campus level. And then the other components where SEL is embedded in daily instruction. So it's something that they're getting a lot of practice with in all of their classrooms with all of their teachers as they're doing their natural learning in the classroom.
When we went to CAST to do the PBL, the kids that, the teams together and created their own ideas and opportunities for careers and stuff like that. They had, this one group had a great idea to be mentors, to be like a big brother, big sister kind of thing. I love that idea. I wish we could get our olders down to the elementary, to the littles, and have them, I mean, they love it when they do the football players do the drop off and pick up line. They see them, they're there, they're present. No,
Can we get back to the basics, like a handshake and you look
Yes.
someone in the eye?
Yes.
Sorry, it's how I was raised. We were all raised that
I'm
way.
just thinking from an adult to a
Yeah,
child, they
absolutely.
might not open up as much as they would to an older student.
I agree. Sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to special education. So an update in special education, last year I brought you a new program that we were implementing called BLISS, and that stands for Behavior Language Intervention Services. And so this year, I want to just give you a little update into the BLISS program, because this is going to be what we're focusing on expanding for next year. So we, as an outcome of several things, you know that we've had an enrollment increase. With the enrollment increase, we have also gotten an increase in our special education numbers, as well as an increase in the needs of the type of special education students that we're seeing. And so with that, we've had to really look at what type of services do we provide those students to make sure that we're really meeting those needs. In addition, about 3 or 4 years ago, TEAA, the state of, well actually the federal government kind of got on to the state of Texas saying that we were out of compliance. The state used to say that we could only have a certain percentage that we could qualify for special education, and that was found to be not okay anymore. And so with that, the state of Texas had to look at the way that they qualify students for special education. And so we are now feeling the effects, if you will, of that outcome that happened several years ago. So more students are qualifying for special education, more students are moving to San Antonio, more students are moving to our area, and we're finding that they're having greater and greater needs. And so one of the area of needs that we're really finding is in the area of autism. And so we have a much larger population of students who qualify and for the area of autism. BLISS Students is a program that really helps to service students that qualify not just in autism, but also low language. And so we really had to look at how are we going to service those, because we had our general ed population, we had our redirection, which is our behavior unit. We didn't really have something in the middle for those students who we really needed something different. So we instituted this year, and it's been very successful. We did it at 3 campuses this year. Next year, we're expanding to all campuses. Every campus will have a BLISS classroom. Most of the students spend about 20% of their time in the BLISS classroom and the rest out. There is a BLISS, like a special education teacher, and they provide intensive supports and therapies and supports. They're very certified in a behavior technique, and then they go out with them to the general ed classrooms and help support them in the classroom. So we are very excited about this expansion. Number one is it helps to put students back at their home campus. So they're back in their neighborhood schools, in their home campus. It also provides them with, it helps us to provide more classrooms to be able to provide more supports to more students. And so we're very excited about this expansion, and it's a more specialized program than we've been able to provide for these specific needs of these students than we have been in the past. So it's something that we're growing. It's something that we are continuing to work on. These teachers and paras require a certification that we are in partnership with our service center and a local university, and they help us to help get the specific behavior training for these teachers and paraprofessionals. And so with their partnership, we've successfully been able to train everybody this year, and we will continue to train our new staff so that they have the skills that they need to be successful in the classroom. So that's something that we're working towards as we continue to grow this program over this next year. So that's something that we're really working on.
So prior to this, we had general ed setting. You might have the redirection, behavior unit, or the life skills setting. And oftentimes students with autism who had these very specialized needs didn't really perfectly fit in any of those three. And we served them in the best ways we could, but it wasn't really meeting their needs. And so a few years ago, we did some research with a local university, and we came up with this model, and we launched it this year. We staffed for it, trained for it, launched it at 3 campuses, as Dr. Fuller mentioned, and it's very successful. Now we're expanding it to all schools. So we just have another option to increase the likelihood that we're precise in how we're serving the very specific needs of the students that are really diverse needs. And when we get it right, we see children who might have had behavior challenges coupled with language challenges or communication challenges, and the only way they know how to communicate might be to hit, scratch, or bite, because they don't have tools for communicating. But through this program, we've seen children develop communication methodologies, and that instead of communicating in the ways that were less acceptable prior, they're now communicating in more acceptable ways, and we're seeing tremendous progress, and they're starting to be reintroduced into the mainstream classroom and actually learning.
Which campuses?
The campuses that we had for this year.
Oh, Harmony, Tradition, and PB. And then we're gonna have it all next year.
So all 3 elementaries.
Half
seven.
this year.
But, only 3 elementaries this year.
Tradition,
This
Harmony, and PD. Yeah. So we're excited about that opportunity for next year. So now I'm gonna talk to you about our youngest learners. So I'm very excited about pre-K. We talked to you about this, I feel like we've been talking to you about this the last 7 years, and we've really expanded our pre-K. And so, I mean, I feel like we've really, really grown this program. I'm excited to share that this year, we've been able to recoup almost all and grown our enrollment to pre-COVID, which is very exciting because we saw a big hit for our pre-K students who were not coming to school, and we're excited to say they're back. Yay! So we wrote a grant again this year for our with pre-K for essay, and we were awarded a $1.7 million grant over the next 2 years. And so that grant starts next year. What we decided to focus on for this grant is really the bulk of it is going to outdoor learning. So we this year are building out 1 outdoor learning site at Sinclair. If you haven't gone to Sinclair yet, it's almost finished. So our outdoor learning site, and when you go to Sinclair, is right on like the left-hand front side. And so that's almost finished. It's very exciting. We hired an architect that worked with the campus administration and their team to really design that outdoor space to be an exciting space. You have a little picture of it, but for that campus. So we are going to be designing 2 outdoor spaces for 2 campuses next year, and then 2 the following year. So in the next 2 years, we will have built out 4 outdoor learning spaces. We figure each space will be about $3.5 million a piece.
Wow.
what did I say? $350,000, I'm sorry, $350,000 a piece, sorry.
I was gonna say, wow.
It's not a playground.
$350,000. It's not a playground, $50,000 a piece.
Yeah.
It's not a playground, it's a learning space. So they go out,
Not a playground.
they go out just like they would in their indoor space, and they go out to learn instead of being in their house center or in their library center, then they go outside and they have different centers outside. And the campus designs what their spaces look like and what their centers look like. So what we do is in the beginning of the year, next year it will be Harmony and I believe it's Harmony and Salado. So those are the two that are slated for the next year. So we'll meet with their team in the beginning of the year. We'll pick the space that they want, and then they'll start to design based on what their space is there, and the architect will work with them, and then it'll be done by the end of next year. So we're super excited about that. The following year, we'll have 2 more elementary schools, and then our goal is to have all 7 built out within the next 4 years.
So Harmony Salado, and then,
So we haven't picked the other 2 because it would depend on if we go out for a bond and which schools we include in a bond and which schools are under construction. So when we wrote the grant, we had only said Harmony and Salado initially, and then we just said we would wait to see if the board chooses to go out for a bond, which campuses would be involved in the bond and which ones might be under construction, because we don't want anything to be messed up or, competing, so we kind of just left that open, and they were fine with that.
so does anybody have any questions about the outdoor learning space? So the concept, right, is take what you would do in a classroom outside, but use the materials in the natural world to explore the content.
I love that.
This is a big,
It's so cool.
big
Yeah.
thing for children
For sure.
who are curious.
Yes.
And learning content.
Yes.
They learn it in the context of their world around them. We haven't always done that in schools.
Yeah.
We learn only academic stuff in the 4 walls of a traditional classroom. So when you look there's water, there's tubes, there's things to climb, there's bugs, there's dirt, there's mud, there's different textures,
gardens.
there's ropes, there's gardens,
Yeah.
this is how kids learn. So they're learning, this very instructionally focused. The design of the experience out there there's as much planning that goes into that as the design of the instruction in the classroom. And it can vary. So the materials, the stations they set up out there will always change.
And the teachers go through very rigorous training on,
Oh,
on how to teach kids, how to implement it, how to engage kids in outdoor learning, all of that, yeah. So it's a whole, it's a whole nother side, it's exciting.
We used to do that back in the day when Mr. Jones used to walk us down the road here to the. That was our
Were your parents would kick you out and say, don't come back till after dark when dinner's ready?
But Mr. Jones was very innovative. He was already getting us out of the classroom.
That's awesome.
To walk down the road and learn out there, so back then, but nothing like that. Nothing like this. This is
Coach Mulkey
amazing.
wants to volunteer for the first class.
So if you have an opportunity in
No,
the
I would
next
go.
month,
Yeah.
Sinclair will be finished,
Oh,
so
that's-
you might just go by and see
Nice.
it.
I would love to.
How many pre-K classes are at Sinclair?
Oh, how many pre-K classes are at Sinclair? Are there 5?
Okay, so I'm just wondering,
Are there 5?
so will they rotate out here to this learning, or all of them will be out there at once? So you'll rotate
Yeah, they
out?
rotate.
Okay, they'll rotate out, and just like the changing class person will come back, and that's how they'll do it.
Yep, yep.
Teacher go with them and rotate them, okay, gotcha, yeah.
And
That sounds
And
good.
not just pre-K, so you could use the younger kids can use, so they can have, first kindergarten can go use it, first grade can go use it.
Okay.
Yes,
Not
and
just
so
the-
it can be an outdoor learning space for
the
other kids to use
also,
as well.
right,
Yes.
Okay.
I had asked earlier this year about a gardening
Yeah.
opportunity, and he told me that I think Pecan Valley's gonna be doing one next year or whatever. And so I'm curious, because we just took a bunch of kids to Garcia Street Urban Farms this past Saturday, and they had an absolutely extraordinary real learning experience. There were instructors that were teaching them. So my point is, did we get a grant? Did you get a grant for the garden And how will that fit in the distances on outdoor learning experience, or you just decided to do gardens?
In this,
Yeah, well.
Well, so some of the campuses that have gardens have done so in different ways. Some of them have been supported by PTA, some of them were grants, Stellatos, for example. And
but we also support it through our funds. So we provide them, we write in, like, if you will, funds for them, for the pre-K and kids each year that they can use as to support their outdoor learning. And so some of them use them for their gardens. So they'll go buy soil and plants and seeds and those kinds of things. And so they'll buy those things each
And
year.
the reason I was asking is because there is a big push for community gardens and a lot of teaching in gardens and stuff. And you can get grants for those, for not just schools, but other places. And so there's across the country, there's collaboration with the communities, with the schools. And so when you mentioned the outdoor learning thing, I just naturally thought about how that could possibly connect. And I thought that they could provide a source of income for that too. So I don't
So
know.
a side note, I'll just say one more thing. We have a little program called Chef, where it's super cool, and we bring in fresh fruits and vegetables, and we teach them how to prepare them. And so things that you would get, and so they get to taste different things, eat different things, and so so it's pretty cool. They love it. Yeah.
There's restaurants that are called farm to table.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say,
They're my favorite.
Yeah, me too.
yeah.
And see, I can see how this could work. The little kids could grow their vegetables and then bring it to the culinary part at the high school, and we can all just come and pick
We're gonna get to
out.
the point where we can't afford groceries, so we're gonna have to go to these kids.
Yeah, we'll go to kids, and they'll make it for us.
Grow it for us.
Okay, a couple more things and then we'll wrap up. So, this one is just an update. I just wanted the next couple ones are update on really our summer programs and what's going on right now. And so I'm excited to share that we have our summer intern program going on right now. And so up here in your packet, it tells you we have currently in district, we have 20 summer interns. In East Central, so there are students that are interning in our departments across the district, 20 of them. So that's really exciting to kind of grow your own. So this is where they are spread out. We're very excited about it. This is our efforts to continue with our practicums, industry certifications, and continue to help our students as they are working towards their post-secondary goals. So we're very excited about that. Their first day was yesterday, so we just kicked off. Yeah, we're really excited about it.
Good for them.
Yay! Yeah. And so with that, continuing with our CTE, one of the things that we are working on this year is as we are working towards our courses, we really looked at what is it that we are offering at the high school, and then how do we prep our middle school students to prepare for those courses, and to really think about what are they starting to be interested in, right? And so we start to think about those course selections and those pathways in middle school. And so what we want to do is start to ready our students and prepare our students and offer them those opportunities starting in middle school. So this next year, we're going to be offering 4 new courses. We have already offered robotics, but we're going to expand it, and we're going to be offering more sections of robotics, but we're going to be offering principles of applied engineering, principles of hospitality and tourism, and principles of business, marketing, and finance at both middle schools starting next year. So we're very excited about that. And so that's something that we really looked at. Both of them have looked at their staffing, and then we've offered it to our students, and they've already have students in the courses, and students have already selected those. So what we really looked at is, as we looked at AVID, is something that we've had in our programming, and it's something that our students started not opting into as much. And so we know that the goal of AVID is to get students into those higher level courses. And so we started to try to think of what can we do? What's a different alternative way that we can look at programming? And so this is what we're going to do in lieu of Avid for middle schools and high school, is really looking at what can we do for those pathways and bring those down to middle schools to get our students connected to those pathways and get them ready for high school through that. So that's something that's a little bit of a change that we're going to be looking at starting next year. So we're very excited about it. The kids are excited about it. They're very excited that they have more robotics courses. So we're excited to be able to offer that to them. Any questions about
So
that?
the Avid grant finishes next year, right? Is that their
We didn't
last
have a
class?
grant. It was just something that we
Oh,
offered.
okay, gotcha.
But it just, we
What are
didn't
you
have.
talking about, Europe?
Oh, Gear Up.
Gear Up finishes, yes, Gear Up,
I
yes.
was good, I don't know why I did that.
Yes.
So you may recall at graduation when I talked about all the certifications kids earned, and that there were multiple kids who had earned multiple certifications. So one of the big benefits here is not only getting kids to explore career pathways a little bit sooner, to be a little more intentional as they think about the programming that they're gonna pursue in high school, but by taking principles courses in middle school, it gives kids more options for that practicum later, and they can have more than one practicum, because when they do their field-based practicum, they also then prepare for that industry certification exam. So this gives more kids, in fact, ideally, all kids, a chance to take more than one practicum and earn more than one industry certification upon graduation. So we're really excited about that. Part of being able to do this is because they finally allowed for funding to be generated down to junior high. Used to be you could offer these
Right.
courses, but you wouldn't generate funding. So it was a local spin. So now we get career technology funding like we do for these courses at the high school level. Now is a good time after evaluating the return on investment for Avid to really look at the whole picture and see how we can parlay this into something that levels up conditions for our kids. And so we wanted to make sure you guys were aware of this because we're really excited
Yeah,
about
Yeah.
this
Thank
opportunity.
you for adding that.
Yeah, awesome.
So the next two slides, I'm gonna talk a little bit about choice. And so we ventured into the option of choice for our kids. We know that kids like choice. We wanna talk about how do we engage them in the opportunity to choose things and pathways in our district that would appeal to what they wanna do and their interests. And so one of the options that we started 3 years ago was CAS Lead. And so CAS Lead, we add each year another grade level. This next year, we're going to be adding 2 grade levels. We're going to be adding 8th grade as well as 11th grade. So both of those grade levels will be added next year. So we're excited about that. And then P-TECH, I think we've talked to you about P-TECH, that we were awarded that grant for P-TECH. So next year, it'll be for the health sciences, is our planning year. So we're just starting planning for the P-TECH. So next year we'll be planning, and it will open the following year as a part of a early college.
It's a partnership with Palo Alto.
And yeah, in RSSP, and through the whole T-class aspect. So we're excited about that. So more to come on that, but I just wanted to kind of remind you that we have those coming up. And then the next aspect is something that we are really exploring as our next option. So we're really looking at options of what's our next choice that we can look at for our students. And so we know that as we're a growing district, our enrollment keeps growing, we need to look at potentially flexibility with some of our different schools, and we might have some areas in the district that may not be growing at the same rate as others. And so if there's an opportunity where we might have a school that's not growing in the same rate, and we need to look at something that we might need to do with that boundary, or that school that's in with that boundary, we know that we want to kind of explore what could be some options with that. And so we had two teams of folks this year that explored different choice school options. And so they went across Texas to really go and explore what are some choice schools that are out there. They went to go visit schools. They looked at everything from different models to costs, staffing, what's benefits, what are some things that kids really seem to be excited about, and then what are our kids seem to be excited about that we think that would do really well for our kids. And one of the things that seemed to rose to the top is a STEM school. And so science, technology, engineering, and math is what STEM stands for. And so this is something that we're really looking at as an option for us, as something that we're going to be bringing to you a little bit later, but we just kind of wanted to plant a seed as an option right now, as something that when we went to go and explore these schools, this seemed like something that kind of fit right in with our pathways that our kids seem to be the most excited about at high school. And so how do we get those early learners ready and prepped for that? And so we were looking at maybe a kindergarten and maybe through an 8th grade, because we were looking at, we have Salado, we have the dual language academies, we don't have anything in middle school, right? And so if we have someone at Salado that wants a choice in middle school, we don't offer anything in middle school, but then we offer CAS, and then we'll have P-TECH eventually. So we thought maybe as an option, we could do a kindergarten through 8th grade school, so that those students could continue through their middle school and then travel on to maybe a different high school choice school, so that they could have a choice all the way from kindergarten or pre-K all the way up through 12th grade, if that was the pathway that they so choose. It would be around STEM, that we could offer computer science as a second language. We would look at a 1-to-1 ratio of technology, and that one of the curriculums that we really found that really that all the schools use that seemed to be very appealing was Project Lead the Way, that was very STEM focused as well as engaging for students. It was project-based learning, which we've already incorporated in some of our other CAS-Lead and Salado that we've had a lot of success with, that our students seem to do really well with. So something that we're going to bring more to you, but we wanted to just kind of plant a seed of an idea that we're just starting to explore some options.
Are there grants available? I mean, obviously,
There are, so that's what we started looking at. There's grants for the curriculum, and so there are some grants available that we have to apply for. Then the last thing I want to leave you with is right now, summer school kicked off this past, yesterday, along with the internship. We have, I guess probably last year we shared that we kind of, we redid summer school. Our new philosophy with summer school is we want it to be fun, right? So we want kids to want to come to summer school. So we have a whole new feeling around it. There's a theme. It's called Adventure Awaits. It's everything that you've seen. Hopefully, all the flyers have the same theme. It's everything from the field trips to all the things that they've done. They've put so much work to make sure that kids have a really good experience. So there's 3 big aspects to summer school. You've got summer enrichment, you've got the summer school aspect, and then you've got the camps, the athletic camps. And so all 3 are going on. We have over 1,000 students that are enrolled and that are attending this summer. And so it's been a very successful launch so far, I'm excited to say, and we've had a really, really, really good turnout. I think we were full in almost every area. We had to turn people away. I mean, we had people coming from other areas and districts saying, "Can we please come?" And we're like, "Oh, I know." That's awesome. So very exciting, very exciting. And then in the beginning of school, we'll be kicking off a new summit, which is like going to be a welcome back it's an optional for teachers. It's going to be, we're calling it the EC Strong Educator Summit. It is a 1-day conference style where teachers can sign up to come. Like I said, it is optional, but it has 7 strands with over 100 sessions that we're offering. Our very own Mr. Toscano is leading a session that we're very excited about. We have over 240 teachers who have signed up to come, or educators across the district. They can come to one session or they can come to all. So they can come and do one thing, they can come and stay the whole day. We have also tried to make it fun. We're going to have food trucks. We're going to have like a vendor area with like things they can shop for. So we've tried to make it a very fun feeling for them with it being summer and it just be like more of an experience as well as learning. So we're very, very, very excited about that. We're going to be providing childcare for kids under the age of 5. For teachers who have young ones and still want to come, we don't want that to be a barrier for them, so we're going to be providing that as well. And then we have new teacher PD this year. And with the new teacher PD, we have everybody that's new, but this year we're doing something that's a little bit different for secondary. So we're gonna have our regular new teacher PD for elementary, and then this year for secondary, we wanted to do a little bit of a just reinventing it just a little bit. And so we have partnered with the person who's helping us with the math. And he's going to help us design our new teacher PD to help them get ready and prepared for back to school. So he's gonna help us work with us to design our 4 days around lesson planning, behavior, classroom management, planning, all that good stuff, so that teachers have everything they need to go into the classroom. And it's aligned to what they'll be getting when they get back, when they get into planning with their teachers. So that's something new that we're very excited about, that we're gonna work on and get feedback from teachers with, so.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can you make sure those 240 people enrolled are enrolled in this one session?
Limited seats, scarcity. Seats are going
Popular.
fast.
I don't know about that.
Thank you, Shane McKay.
So, big things, we've got our Forky systems, our EC Cares repackaging for our social, emotional, and academic support for our students, our Bliss program for our special needs students who really are early learning, which we're really excited about, with our pre-K outdoor learning, thank you. Our CTE expansion with our CAST, PTEC, and then our summer learning, we're excited about. So, and then STEM, so we're becoming more to come on that.
Wow, that's awesome. That's good stuff.
Yes,
I don't know how y'all keep up with it all.
I know.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Dr. Fuller.
Thank
Why don't we take a 5-minute break so we can stretch and
Yep.
get up? All right, let's get going.
All right.
What we got next? Is this a new one here?
Yeah.
It's a new guy.
Newbie?
But he's well prepared,
Oh,
so
yeah.
ask him all the questions you
All
have.
right.
Appreciate that.
Her party
We're gonna show up to your
He's
first board
a-
meeting and
He's
sign
Yeah.
up.
Rotten tomatoes.
We're gonna
It's
tell them in
coming.
the parking lot.
We're gonna take it.
It's coming.
We're gonna take it at your.
You
we're
know
gonna take
we
it at
can
your
sign
sign.
Bring it.
Don't
Yes,
play
ma'am.
with
I
this.
got it.
I would
Glutton
love
for
to have
punishment.
you.
I get it. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You forget I went to Edison, right? I'm playing.
Mr. Massengale, Mr. Toscano, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you. I'm humbled by the opportunity to serve the district in this new capacity. So I just want to say thank you for your confidence in that. So I just want to say thank you. It'll be a tough transition with some gigantic shoes to fill, but I'm excited for the opportunity. I'm going to present to you on our student community engagement department, what we're working on, what we've worked on, and we're going to continue to work on throughout the next year. So took an intentional approach, knowing that we were coming through COVID, of how do we get our parents and families re-engaged back with school. So this past year, we really took an approach where we wanted to teach all of our campuses and campus reps on the frameworks for the Epstein about how do we involve parents, and it's more than just having them come out for a showcase on the night, but how do we get them involved and have a voice. So those partners then came back to the campuses and trained our campuses on that, and one of the things that we saw as a side benefit was one of the highest levels of participation from parents that we've seen in an incredibly long time. This year, I believe there's 362 total events that happened across the district that included parent engagement, and the feedback we received from the families and the parents that were involved were really, really positive, and so we're looking forward to springboarding through that and finding ways to have more district level events and campus level events to get our parents engaged in that. One of the other endeavors that we took in the second semester of this last year was reinventing our PTA presidents cadre and getting our PTA presidents together to create a collaborative space where they can learn from each other, try to maybe steal some ideas, and then also having a district rep that could be there to provide additional support and even some guidance if they have questions about, and then how do we rally around and be able to even find other resources that we can tap in to be able to help support our PTAs and feeling like we can unify them in a greater approach to be able to leverage what they're trying to do to help support every campus that they are associated with. As a part of that, one of the things that we want to work to do with those PTA councils is to get volunteers to be willing to give back to be a part of the East Central School Foundation.
So how do we increase volunteerism with the school foundation? Because we know that's very valuable and important work that the school foundation does for our community, for our students and our staff, providing those resources for them to do innovative projects and scholarships for their next level once they leave school. So that opportunity is going to continue to be afforded and move forward from there. And then the last thing that the Student Community Engagement Department will be focusing on specifically is addressing chronic absenteeism. We know coming through COVID that there were going to be challenges. We've noticed it's a national trend that the amount of chronic absenteeism in the East Central community and nationwide before COVID, it was around 5% was your chronic absenteeism. And if we define chronic absenteeism as 30 or more absences in a calendar year. This year, the national trend in East Central is very much in alignment with that, is around 15%. And so part of that is trying to work with our communities and schools, our social services, our municipal court folks, and trying to find ways that through case management, through getting them engaged, getting their families engaged, and other things that we could try to do, even possibly EC Cares, what do we need to do to get our kids to get back into school, to trust that they're there, and to see it as a part. So that's the next arm that we're going to be really looking at, is try to reduce that chronic absenteeism moving forward. So next one, questions on any of these? So you're probably aware that we partnered with Holdsworth, and part of that work with Holdsworth is how do we create a ready bench? Like, how do we create leaders within the organization to develop a pipeline of ready leaders? We know with our exponential growth, one of the things that we've discovered is that we don't have as deep of a bench as we would like to have when we're ready. In fact, our goals are in our vacancy planning is we want to try to get to where we have 3 ready leaders for every 1 vacant position that may become available. So we've entered into that work. We've really defined what the competencies are. We've defined what are the core behaviors that are there. We're working really diligent right now on creating kind of a pathway for training and developing, not only training and developing the campus mentors, but training and developing those that are going to be inserted into the pipeline. What are the skills, identifying that they have to have getting into the pipeline, and what skills do we want them to walk away with? What are the experiences that we want them to have? What are going to be some things we're going to do direct training with them on? What are some things we're going to make sure are job embedded, the experiences that they're going to be able to receive, and then what are going to be the collaborative, kind of the professional learning opportunities that we're going to provide them throughout the year to grow as a part of that, and as a pathway of that is get really clear this past year on defining the definition of an East Central leader, and then using that to anchor back to whenever we're out looking for potential in other leaders, how are we trying to see where there's alignment with that. And then one of the things we've also uncovered is how do we continue to find ways to increase, to develop that bench, our assistant principals, our academic facilitators, and our academic deans in that engagement. So how do we find more ways to create more touch points with them, more training and development opportunities, more professional learning opportunities with them, because we know that if they have a cohort, if they're able to continue to train and develop, they're able to get job embedded skills, they're also going to be more prepared in the pipeline to be able to move up into potential district and campus leadership opportunities. And then the last thing with our leadership development pipeline is we've uncovered, we know that there's a disconnect between our Hispanic demographic when we try to match what our Hispanic demographic is for our district, and then we match those that are in the leadership roles and or those that are even in the pipeline, trying to get to where we are at an equal level with the same number. So if we're talking 70% of our student population is Hispanic, we should be working to try to increase the number of Hispanic leaders, ready leaders that we have inside of our district. So questions about the leadership development pipeline and the work that we're going to be doing there. I know it sounds weird to say that we've gone through an entire year and we're getting into the second year, but that's a 5-year phase. So it really is I've just had a couple of experiences this week on the intentional process, and I'm just blown away at the level of detail and thought that's going into to really make sure that it's sustainable and it's long lasting and that it's transferable year after year. So
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
In light of COVID and everything like that, I know that, of course, a lot of people are rethinking their careers and not being a teacher anymore. But what about the people that are wanting to continue teaching, but they've really lost a lot of their engagement? You know, they feel burned out, overwhelmed, or whatever. I know when you're creating leaders and to have for every spot, whatever, what do you have prepared for these leaders to help with the teachers, that, you know, in the trenches that have lost their way a little bit? Anything?
I think that's I know Mr. Toscano had talked about, and it's something that we're learning, and she provides training and development too, not just for staff, but for students, but our base campus, through the communities and schools. I think that's one of the things that we really learned is how do we encourage staff to take care of themselves so they can continue to take care of others. So I think the other thing, when you look at employee engagement, one of the things that sometimes creates the conditions that they're not as engaged is they're not as connected. So how do we get them to be connected, not just connected with their colleagues, but connected directly with their leaders? So part of that leadership development is how do you mentor, how do you coach, how do you create connection and touch points with the people that you serve and you lead on a daily basis? Because I think once they know that somebody values them, cares about them, wants to see them grow, is willing to provide them feedback in that, and partner with them in that process, then they feel more ready to be engaged in that. I think also it's about creating a cohort of people that can work together to lean on each other, that light is a load when we all carry it. So when you've got others that you can lean on, that you can go through to provide you that support is another thing. And if I'm leaving anything off, Shannon, I know that that's something too that we've had some conversations around as well. But as a part of that pipeline is how do we also support those so they don't get burned out? So some of the work around, trying to work on how do we create the conditions that they're not spending so much time outside of the school and grading and planning and those types of things. How do we help them to create and find balance? So what are the resources that we need to be able to provide them as well?
So these three, the Ready Leaders, is that in every department? Is there pretty much three?
No, this right now is for the principalship specifically. So we're talking about the principalship across the district.
Okay, thank you.
So if we see a potential person that could possibly lead, they're obviously approach, sorry that I don't, do we offer tuition reimbursement, for example, a teacher that is let's say for example, Miss Jackson at Legacy.
Sure.
She was an amazing math teacher to my kids, and I was so excited to see her moved up. So is that something was she approached and asked to work on her leadership skills or offered?
So the thing about this work that we're learning about developing a leadership bench is it has to be intentional. It can't be by chance. And what had happened by chance before was maybe somebody got tapped on the shoulder, maybe somebody advocated for themselves, maybe by chance someone had a conversation with the superintendent at a ball game and they said, I'm in a master's program, I really want to move into leadership. But in this case, we're developing a system that will eventually become, every employee has the opportunity regularly to have talent conversations with their supervisor. It sounds something like, what are your goals? What do you aspire for your career? What are some things you might want to pursue as you think 5 or 10 years out as an educator in your career? And then I talk about some of the things that I think you do really well and some of the opportunities you might have to grow. And then they'll know that we have designed opportunities for job-embedded experiences. So our model that we're playing with right now is called a residency model. In this model, you might have a teacher leader who says, I want to move into a principalship someday. We identify them as a high potential leader. They have aspirations of becoming a principal. We say, hey, we're going to put you in a residency with a cohort of other high potential leaders who have similar aspirations. And we're going to let you have one foot in your current job while strategically letting you have another foot in what it would be like to be a principal. And that might happen for a year, it might happen for 2, it might happen for 3, but at the point at which you're ready and the opportunity presents itself, you're ready day one. You're not just a teacher leader busting your tail for 20 years who all of a sudden gets placed in a principalship and has never experienced it. So the Holdsworth has taught us that that's called a turn in leadership, like a rung on a ladder, and at every turn, the skills are different. And if you don't intentionally train people for that next turn, they revert back to the skills that served them well in their previous turn. So for example, if I'm a teacher and I'm really good, I'm leading myself. If I'm a teacher leader or department leader, I'm leading other teachers. That's different than leading myself. I might have been a great biology teacher, but if I can't help others become great biology teachers, so what happens if I don't have that skill, then I'll just do it for them. I'll write all the lesson plans for all of them. And I burn out. And I'm not effective at building capacity. So every step along the way, there has to be an experience, a job-embedded experience preparing them for that next turn. So I'm getting way ahead of ourselves here. It's a 5-year journey, but we are in the middle of 2 different pilots for principalships. And I'm happy to say, while we haven't hit 3 people ready for every job, we're interviewing for 3 principalships right now, and I think we're gonna find that our residencies that we explored this year are gonna fill at least 2 or 3 of those. And this is only year 1, and it's only a pilot, what we're doing. And it's what Shane's gonna have to lead now going forward. But it's really exciting work.
Yeah.
So this is the concept, and so, you think about burnout, all employees wanna know is that I've got upward mobility.
Yeah.
That there are multiple pathways to my aspirations as a career. And as long as there are pathways, as long as I have the will, and as long as that I can pursue it, right? So we haven't always had that. It's
Right.
pretty much by chance that you fall into a leadership role where now you can be in control of your own destiny.
Right.
So that's what we're building. More to come.
And I think it's also the
And I
design.
see the benefit of that because everybody may not want a particular position, but they may want their leadership skills strengthened. And I talk about that in a group of leaders that I meet regularly a lot of times. You cannot give to others if you don't have something, if you don't have it in yourself. You have to be fed and nourished, and you have to grow and all of those kinds of things. And then out of that, at some point, there may be an opportunity where a person may aspire for something, but as you said, if they know they can work towards that, it's just, even with that and getting more experience, sometimes that's what that person needs at that time in their life. But what is exciting is, it sounds like that everybody has an opportunity to grow.
So to that point, one of the residency cohorts was for replacing the high school principal someday. We knew the day was coming, we didn't know Ashley was gonna do Ashley, and
Right?
Shane was gonna need to be expedited, but we wanted to play with high school, it's a tough job. So we asked sitting principals, hey, we got this idea, if you're interested, right? I think we had 5? 7 volunteer to go through this residency experience where I might be a middle school or an elementary principal, but I've never lived in the high school principalship, so now they all have. The key thing is now we're taking applications for this job, and not all 7 applied. But that's okay, because what they really wanted was just an opportunity to learn and grow. I didn't necessarily want to be the high school principal, but I know I'll be better in my current role if I have an expanded understanding of the principalship at all levels. And so several of them just wanted an opportunity to grow.
Wow.
Powerful.
Well, I think the other thing I appreciate about it that I was gonna segue into is the transparency on what are the core competencies to be highly effective in that. And it wasn't defined by the cohort that's been going to Holdsworth. It's actually defined by the district leaders as we've been meeting throughout the year on, here's a core competency that we're working on. What would the behaviors that you would see as an exemplar in somebody acting in that principalship role? So the visibility and the transparency in that is if it's something I'm aspiring for, it's going to be eventually clearly visible for every staff member to be able to see that if that's something I aspire for, these are the qualities, the competencies, and the behaviors that I have to feel comfortable and confident in. And if I'm not there yet, what do I need to do to grow in that area? So providing them 360-degree leadership opportunities so they can self-evaluate, they can have a peer evaluate them, they can have maybe their supervisor evaluate them, find where they're strong, enhance those strengths, and then find those areas where they need to grow, and then provide them intentional opportunities to grow in those areas. So when they are ready, and they do get a chance to interview, and they do get a chance to put their foot in the door, they're set up for success from day one. So that transparency piece, I think, is vital, because it's always been very ambiguous. And if it's very ambiguous, you don't know how to hit the mark in there. So.
And people assume the worst. Well, you gotta be in the in crowd. You know, you gotta be from East Central.
Right.
Or
Can't be an Aggie.
you know.
Well,
Well,
Sorry.
that's something.
I'm gonna step away.
Sorry.
So the next area of focus is restorative and transition services. One of the things that you're more aware is that BCLC, because of COVID and because of placements, our enrollment at BCLC has significantly declined. And so it's an opportunity to reevaluate how we service the students that come through BCLC. So reducing the number of staff that are there, but going more to a model that provides where they get some direct teach and small group, really designed around critical content that they need to know and be able to understand and be successful in, and then augmenting that with some online learning platforms where students get a chance to supplement those things. So we're better utilizing our staff and our resources, because some of those staff now are going to be transferred over to DAP, and we're very excited to bring DAP back to the district. Part of the primary reason for that is to provide us local control on the types of delivery of content for those students that are there. And one of the things that I'm really, really excited about is that the first half of their day will be designed around getting their core curriculum delivered to them, very much in the similar manner I talked about with BCLC. Small group instruction, a lot of small direct teach, but then they're going to have opportunities to supplement with a blended learning model and do some things online. But then when they hit the afternoon, we're going to be doing a lot of social and emotional learning with those folks. We're going to have outside partners like Cicada come in and give talks around drug awareness and alcohol addiction and understanding what are the positive ways, getting our communities and schools representatives to come in there and provide community service opportunities and restorative pieces, bringing in our officers to build rapport and case manage with them. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity that we could really help to create the opportunities that when students do, unfortunately, are required to go to the alternative school, that we reduce the recidivism by using this as an opportunity. Because if you look at the Latin root of discipline, it means dissipate, which means to teach. How do we use this as an opportunity to teach, restore, and hopefully help that student grow? The other thing that will come as a byproduct of that is they'll now go into that EC Cares case management opportunity. So they're going to also be continue to be monitored, supported, even when they transition back to the campus. Their counselor, their administrator, and their teachers will be engaged in that work, to also include our social services worker. So if there's additional underlying things that we need to provide for that student, whether it's emotional needs, whether it's physical needs, whether it's academic needs, we can help catch that student back up where they need to, because oftentimes we know behaviors and manifestations of many of those other things that are not being met when they're either at home or in their own personal life, or even sometimes at school. So we're really excited about bringing our DAP back to the district and having more local control on that front. We are also making a shift, so we've utilized Navigate Prepared as our application for how we respond in a crisis. We're shifting over to Raptor. Raptor is our current process. If you're ever come through the front office and you dropped off your ID, they run it through the Raptor system. It's a background check, and that's how you get into schools, and then they provide you a badge to be able to come in. It doesn't matter what school you go into, you're required to do those things. We're going to shift over to them. So what this does is this provides a seamless support, since it already connects to our visitor management system, that all of our staff will have the application that'll be on there. It aligns to our standard response protocol that we've already been training and developing our teachers and our staff on what to do in case of, but it also provides a highly reliable way for us to communicate with all staff no matter where they are at. And I can give you an examples before Navigate Prepared. We did not have an application of the challenges of trying to communicate with the tennis coaches on the tennis courts, and he can't hear what's happening, but now if he's got a phone, he's going to get an alert that, we need to get your kids locked out, lights and out of sight, whatever the reason may be. But it also provides a two-way communication platform, so teachers can then let us know that they're okay, they're all clear, that what's going on, and we can also communicate back with them of where they're at. So what that really ultimately allows us to do is effectively communicate, create a reliable system for us to be able to, and it lets our staff know what is the appropriate response based on this current situation. So we're all clear, move back into the classrooms, you're good to go, or just keep your door shut, continue on with normal instruction, just don't let your students out. Really, really clear about the processes and procedures that are in there. And I think from a campus standpoint, like moving from my previous role to now, it was always reassuring to know that everybody that was on the campus had this application. And one of the things that we really tried to work with our staff on is identifying is under response, and how under response in the past has always been a reason why something has continued on. But now in actually encouraging our staff that if you see something, it's not just see something, say something. If you got the application, you have an obligation to notify the entire campus through that application so we can take the program measure. It's better for us to say, let's be safe than sorry, and go figure out, wait, never mind. So our first example, I'll just say, is a former principal. I remember the first time we launched our previous application, we had brush fire. That was behind John Glenn. It was the first year we mobilized teachers that are over there. And the first time a teacher saw it, it looked like it was kind of coming this way. Now, even though it was on the other side of the fence, she pushed us all and she alerted the entire campus of what's happening. Luckily, we were able to go over there, we got with chief, got with the fire department, we were able to get, kids were all safe, everybody was good, we were able to continue on normal instruction. But I was so proud of that teacher to have the courage to push that, so we celebrated it, we high-fived her in front of the whole faculty, because you just want their staff to know that they have the opportunity, not only that, but the obligation to notify everybody in case they see something that's there. So, any questions about restorative, BCLC restructuring, and the DAP implementation?
Thank you for doing that, that's amazing. I know when we first passed our bond a long time ago, we toured the high school, and I'll always remember I don't know if it was ISS, those kids were in the worst building on campus, and I made a comment, and I'm like, okay, these kids are already in trouble, and y'all have them in the most crappiest building, like, how does that make them feel? So I really, really appreciate how far we've come and the social, emotional learning aspect of it, because bottom line, it comes down to that,
I really hope that kids, or whoever, staff and kids, I don't know if the C includes read, but see something, hear something, but if you read something,
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
I really wish they would include that, because a lot of times warnings come in written form. And so maybe that is behind C, if you see something on paper or on social media, but anyway.
Well, I think kids
It's really
nowadays,
good to know.
yeah, a Brandeis student got arrested for making an online thread on Instagram, so I think
Hopefully,
kids are,
just reiterate that.
right, yeah.
Well,
That's good stuff.
and one of the things too that we also have is the Talk to Us, and the great thing about that is that's an anonymous platform that anybody can make you aware. So on campuses around, especially the secondary campuses, you see that information posted on bulletin boards where students can literally just take a picture of the QR code that's on there, and they can go on there and leave an anonymous note, and then it goes directly to the principal of that campus. It goes to Brandon Oliver, and then he can either direct that to the chief if he needs to, direct it to Mr. Toscano, and previously Ms. Colas, whatever we need to do for us to begin to figure out what's going on in that situation. So it's continuing to bring about that awareness, but I agree, is that we teach our students to do that same thing, and it is all of our obligations to take care of our
I didn't know about
kids.
the QR code, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
all
so the
around.
Talk to Us tab is on every page of our website, but then also on flyers, QR codes all around the district. We get a lot of anonymous
Yep,
Yeah,
a
that's
lot,
awesome.
a lot.
almost daily.
Yep,
That's awesome.
I mean, we're constantly responding to information, and sometimes it's better to be safe than sorry. We look into it, and thankfully, it's nothing, and, that's good, and sometimes there's something, and it provides us an opportunity to provide support.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes it's an outcry, maybe there's something
Right.
else that's going
To
on,
know
maybe
it's
there's a
being
lack of
used is
awareness.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah, sometimes it's like, well, I didn't know I could say, no, you can't say that, so,
right, correct,
point.
awesome,
good point.
awesome.
So in athletics, one of our main objectives from athletics is we want to help develop better people first, better students second, and better athletes third. So I'm really proud. We know that our coaches have the greatest amount of influence and time and touch points with their students. I remember a former coach that I worked with a long time ago. He said that what a coach did outside of the school setting was done anywhere else, it would be considered a cult. So the opportunity for them to really have an impact on the lives of those kids that they touch every single day. So continuing on with that case management, we know that, again, coming through COVID, everybody experienced a level of trauma. So looking at utilizing the coaching staff who gets to interface with those kids on the daily, whether it's in the athletic period or in the season, or even in the off season, or even now in summer leagues and in strength conditioning, they know that student inside and out, but they're going to continue to monitor their grades, their behavior, their attendance. They're going to be working with their teachers. If they need to provide them additional support, sometimes reaching out to the family to figure out what's going on, getting social services. Maybe we discover there's some kind of trauma happening at home. We could probably be engaged with either communities and schools or back to EC Cares again. So that wraparound services that can be provided by the person that is the greatest influence on the life of that student on a daily basis will continue, and we're going to continue to try to refine and bolster that up. Athletics is committed to continuing on. I heard, the idea of them going to the elementary schools and opening the doors, but really meaningful community service projects, getting out there and wearing the jerseys and wearing the brand while they're there. Again, I think it's learning to service others before self, and that you have an obligation as an ambassador of the school, of the district, to out there and to represent and to provide that support, and it provides that that visual message that we want to send to our community, that our students are here to serve, and they're here to learn through that process as well. And that's a big part of that leadership development, especially as a young age, to learn how to give back to the community that's given them so much and given them the opportunities that have been afforded. And then moving through and trying to strengthen going through to strengthen our middle school programs. And part of that is really providing a lot more mentoring, coaching, guiding, and directing with them. And one of the things that was really, really valuable this year at the high school that they're going to be implementing at the middle schools was an assistant coaches academy. It was a brainchild that the athletics department came up with, Ms. Ariola and her team. It was fantastic, and what it allowed is on those staff development days, maybe just even if it's during lunch, provide them a lunch and come together and let head coaches, let the athletic directors, talking about providing a slight residency of what is it like, what does it take, and helping them to grow, because we want them all to aspire to be head coaches, maybe even athletic directors one day. So even going down to the middle schools and providing that same level of support for our middle school assistant coaches to help them to want to grow and eventually maybe become head coaches and maybe even move on to different directorships in that. So that's where athletics is going to continue to refine and continue to grow. So any questions about athletics?
Good, it's good stuff. I'm glad to hear that.
Marcom, so we got Brandon in the back and Sam. One of the things we've discussed, and they've done such a fantastic job of reaching a market through social media, that how do we continue to reach a broader market, a broader audience other than just using social media platforms. So considering print media, utilizing the sites of buses, any other ways that we can get our brand out there to let people know that we are a great school district. We have great schools with great people who are here ready to serve your children, and just what the opportunities we afford. And we know that with the houses going up, that there's a lot of opportunity there, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute. As y'all know, we're bringing back School Bell Times. So the goal is to get 3 publications out a year, and once we go to print, the goal is to get a 2 to 3 week turnaround to get it back out. It does take some time, obviously, to print and then to batch mail, but once we are able to get that out, we can reasonably assure that within about 3 weeks of that time that it goes out, that we'll hopefully be able to get it out to our community. And we understand with such a wide range of our community not having a vested interest in the school because they do not have a child comes to school, it's so great for us to be able to elevate the amazing things that happen on our campuses every day, those pride points, where, going back to athletics, where athletics is providing community service opportunities, the success stories that have been there, provide the superintendent and the school board president message, maybe what the demographics is looking like and where we're aspiring to go as a district. Innovative school models that are down the road, and I may be interested to send my kid to a STEM or a dual language academy or a leadership academy, whatever those may be. And then the next thing is working with Brandon directly and getting with our realtors, knowing that the market in our area is incredibly fast and growing. There's a lot of maybe a lot of lack of information about the opportunities that are afforded within inside of EC. So he had a really good idea of getting with realtors, creating like a one-pager that we can give them that is, this is EC in a nutshell, but also providing them contact information if they want to learn more about their local schools. Who do I contact to get more of information on that? I'll be transparent. I live in the district, and when we built our home and we moved into the district, we discovered that we lived in EC, but there was nothing that published on the outside that said we lived in EC. And it was funny because I played it off. They didn't know that I was the principal at the high school at the time. So we asked them, and they said it was East Central. And they, long story short, I said, what do you know about the school? I said, we don't really know a whole lot about the school. We know we're probably closer to Judson than we are to East Central, but that was kind of what they said. Turn that around a year later, they were telling people as they were building houses in our community, well, the high school principal actually lives in the community. I found out they were driving by my house and says he lives there. I did find out. But guess what? They were using it to sell homes. Because obviously, if I had children in the school system and I trusted the school system enough to buy a home, live here, pay my taxes, and have my kids all come to the school, it was a selling point. So how do we engage with our realtors to say, we have such great things and opportunities for your kids to offer that are there. So I'm really excited about that. And then, Brandon's had such a great relationship with the media. So creating opportunities to continue to build strong partnerships with the media as another arm and a branch to sell ECISD to the greater community. I know that a lot of the positive stories that we've been able to put out there about our students and our programs and those successes that we've been able to see have been in large part because of Brandon's connection with the local media market, and they'll be first to reach out to him and say, do you have anybody that can give us a story on? We're looking for something positive around schools, and he's able to turn around really quickly and say, I got a story for you, and let's get you out here to film those kids and get East Central. And I think since we brought Brandon on board, I've been able to see us on the news a whole lot more and make way more positive lights than on the negative side. And that's been the great thing, is that for every time we may get a negative, let's flood the market with as many positives as we can, and because of this partnership and connection with them, we're going to be able to do those things. So, questions about Marcom, goals that we want to try to achieve for this next year?
Can we maybe do those one-sheeters, like to the HOA, like boards, just so they're able to provide to the community?
That's exactly the goal.
Awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's absolutely the case. That's a really good point.
The
We'll
teacher that
we'll
gave
continue on with
their
that.
shoes away.
Oh, yeah, that was so cool.
Their graduate.
Oh, yeah.
That
That was a
awesome.
great story. Yep. And then our police department, obviously continuing on, it always, unfortunately, it takes incidences like we've recently occurred to just rattle the cage again, but I know the chief and his department have been highly secured in knowing that we're going to continue to ensure that we have a safe campus and that we have strong security measures. I mean, I know you understand, and there's links onto the presentation that you have access to that talks about some of those things. An officer on every campus, I do not know. I can tell you that there's surrounding districts that are around here that they don't even have a police department in their district. And when they do have to call for an officer, sometimes the response time is 15, 20, 25 minutes before an officer even arrives to the campus. We have an officer on every campus. Response time is 0 to 3 minutes that are there. We know we have control points with vestibules that have bullet-resistant glass in those. We have controlled access points with one push of a button. We're able to lock all the doors and secure that's there. But as a part of that, continuing on, with the Stop the Bleed training that we're providing our staff, when you infuse the Raptor technologies and the standard response protocol, utilizing our police department as a part of that process as a training mechanism, to continue to train and develop our staff throughout the year on how to do that. And Chief's been really integral in us being able to do that. The police department this last year really started their mentoring program. Officer Puente's in the back, and I always remember him telling me, hey, I'm going to mentor that young man. We'd be dealing with the situation, and that'd be the first thing that he would say is he'd say, I'm going to put him on my mentor list, and I'm going to be checking in on him, and then he'd have catch him having private conversations with that young man off to the side. So continuing to ramp up and strengthening that mentoring program along the board. So we also know now that we are housing our DAEP, we know we immediately got a quick touch point there, but as well as on the local campuses, it may not even be a student who's in any kind of trouble, but it may be a student who just needs a male figure, a female figure, an adult figure, a role model in their life to provide them that support, that somebody they can look to as an exemplar of an exceptional human being that's willing to do everything they can to serve their community. And then the mental health training, our staff have received training on this, that the police department has really been really involved in training their officers on mental health awareness and how to respond. And this year even, we are going to be training our safety monitors that we have on our secondary campuses on that mental health awareness, that mental health training. So they're going to be spending a whole week this summer learning about mental health and then how to address if you come across a student or even a parent or a staff member who's in some kind of crisis, what's the appropriate response and how do you react to that. So we're really excited about that. And then something we began this past year, we're going to continue to reinforce that, is our officers, because they are part of the faculty, they're invested, they're there every day doing daily inspections, checks. So they're checking doors, they're checking entry points, they're checking exterior, they're checking gates, they're checking cameras, they're making sure that everybody has the access they need to, that everything is working operationally. If there is some kind of concern and it needs to engage maintenance, they'll let the campus know to get somebody quickly on top of that. If we can't secure a door, we can call up Les or the police department right away. Les will come over. We'll be able to fix the door right away. So I'm really proud of that work of them going around and securing our perimeters and making sure that those areas are safe, but also becoming parts of our faculties where our faculty members can build connections with the people that are there. And I think, as we know, that some of the challenges that we've had with law enforcement and society is this also creates the conditions that people realize that officers are actually there to serve and support. They're not always the bad guys that are there to pull us over if we're speeding down the road or to do something against us when we've committed a crime, but they're also there to help us as well. So by infusing them on our staff and on our campuses, our students now see them as a role model, as somebody they can look up to, and now maybe they'll be less likely to engage with an officer in an appropriate manner. So that mentoring process helps with that. Those opportunities to be on the campus helps with that, and then with the additional mental health training that we're providing our staff and our students can definitely help to be another arm to support moving forward to ensure that our campuses and our facilities and staff and students are safe. So, questions regarding this?
I'm sorry, I just wanna, with the recent incident that happened, I just know that our officers are not only properly trained, but, I mean, we're truly family, because I know for a fact that they would have gone in, no questions asked, you know, and so I always feel so proud of our, police department because of that, and I'm gonna embarrass Officer Fuente for a second, but he helped my daughter personally when she was going through her, issues. So I really appreciate not only Officer Fuente, but Chief and Officer Mora and all our officers, because they do have that connection with our students, and that's what makes a huge difference. I mean, it just, because those kids, a lot of those kids don't have that relationship at home. So thank you, Officer Fuente.
And so just as a recap, continue to enhance and improve our student community engagement efforts and understanding the Epstein's framework and then partnering with our campuses to grow that. Through our work through Holdsworth, getting really clear, but developing a strong ready bench through our leadership pipeline work. BCLC restructuring and DAP launching in the fall, which again I'm incredibly excited about. Working with all of our external and internal partners to address chronic absenteeism, to increase the amount of students that are coming to school on a daily basis. Developing better people, better students, and better athletes third through our athletic case management. Working with Marcom on broader audience and reaching out through more platforms than just social media. And then, continuing to investigate, look into our safety and security measures and our wraparound support services for our students and staff in our entire district. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Before you stop there, you gave us a lot of information in a rapid pace. On chronic absenteeism, why are we waiting for 30 days to identify that as chronic?
So that's a great point. So the goal is not to wait till we're at 30 days. That's just how it's defined, is if they get to that point. So there are multiple layers. So whether it be the letters that go out at 3, 6, and 9, whether it's utilizing municipal courts to go by and knock on the door to figure out why Johnny is not coming, engaging with the counselor, potentially communities and schools or our social services to figure out with the family, is there a reason why Johnny's not coming to school today? So the goal is to never get to chronic, but unfortunately, because of the experiences that we had through COVID, it's gaining that confidence or that realization that, wait a minute, school's not going away, and I have to go, and I need to be there. So part of that is also maybe parental training, so there's a lot of other things that go around it besides disciplinary consequences and taking it to court. What can we do to provide support and services for them? The goal is not to wait till they get to 30. That's just how it's done. That's just
There's a whole lot of
definition.
engagement before they ever get to 30.
That's what I'm wondering.
With that,
So,
there used to be about 5% that did get there still, even with all of that.
yeah.
Post-COVID, it's almost 15%.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. So this is probably because of COVID.
Yes, sir.
Why we're getting chronic is 30. Otherwise, in a normal school year,
Right.
I would think 5 or 6 days would be chronic.
Well,
Yeah. Time
it's
to
the
change.
number of kids that get to that chronic
Yeah,
right now
right.
is more than it would traditionally
Yeah.
be.
You got
It
it,
can
okay.
be overwhelming. So
I got it, yeah, you
figure out,
asked
like
my
which one you
question.
focus on.
I just didn't wonder why with that. Back to your athletic case management, you made some good points there about your high school coaches going to the middle school. I'd like to see that extended on down to the elementary schools
Yes, sir.
also. Because if it extend down to the elementary schools, and these kids, coaches can start identifying kids and know them by names. And then we won't have kids that we're training in legacy and heritage, and they jumping and going to other schools, especially top athletes. I mean, these coaches ought to know those top athletes by their first name. They ought to know their parents by their first name. So what? They can identify some type of bond with those kids and bring them to East Central program. We don't wanna train them at Legacy and train them over here at Heritage, and hey, where is he at? Well, he's out here in Wagner, or he's out here, or she's out here. And that I think we have to start with our coaches, going to the middle school, going to the elementary school, and I know it's gonna take some time, but they're gonna have to start identifying and keep our top athletes here in the East Central District, you know?
And maybe that'll help with discipline too, just in case they go down that road, they'll have something to strive, to look forward to instead of acting out.
And not just top, I mean, kids with potential,
I agree with you on that.
kids with potential, like,
Yeah, but I'm through. I just add something.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
so much.
thank you, good job, Mr. McCain.
Good, great job, excellent. I think you set a record there.
You can go now, Mr. McCain.
All right, Operations Support
Just
Services.
kidding, I'm kidding.
I want you to feel that way. I want you to.
Okay, so as Mr. Toscano said, I am the OSS part of BOSS, the Operations Support Services. And so the areas that I'm going to cover are personnel, technology, transportation, facilities management, and custodial. So I'm going to start first with personnel department. So a lot of what the personnel department is going to continue to work on has already been mentioned by someone on either teams. For example, the leadership pipeline. Mr. McKay and both Dr. Fuller talked about it a little bit. Our role in personnel is going to be to support in that. As we do, we know our support for all of the departments and our campuses is what's critical. We need to make sure that we're providing everything that they need to make the magic happen. So personnel will be assisting with the Holsworth in that they're going to be helping with designing the instruments that the leadership pipeline will use. For example, what do we need to change on our applications? What do we need to highlight or add to our applications in regards to helping the pipeline or helping them to identify candidates? Can we add questions to our application to say, what are your future goals in 5 years? And if they say administrator, okay, funnel them to someone. So personnel will assist in that way. Ms. Sanders is part of the team that goes to Holsworth. We also know that with the growth that's coming, that PASA, the report that was given to y'all, we know that in the next couple of years, we're going to be seeing extensive growth. So what is personnel's role in looking at that extensive growth? We're going to have to help plan, find teachers, find not just administrators and future educators, but teachers. Where are we going to find them? How many do we need to have? We need to have a pool. There was a couple of years ago, we used to have a pool for the principal to be able to select, and they'd have 10 applicants for every position. That's no longer the case. And we're not the only ones in that situation. So what are we going to have to do to attract and bring those people who have options to go to any district that they choose to? We're very lucky that y'all have supported us greatly with making sure that we're competitive in regards to the salary that we're bringing. Our benefits are exceptional. So how is personnel going to get out there and advertise that at every avenue that we can? The personnel department is very active in making sure that we're doing that on every format that we can. Brandon is also very instrumental in helping us publicize what the district offers so that we can make sure that we have the staff for these 4 or 5 new elementary schools that we're going to need to have in the next couple of years. So Ms. Sanders and her department are actively seeking additional resources, additional partnerships to make sure that we're advertising in the right areas and recruiting in the right areas and making sure that we're highlighting the right things about our district because we think we're pretty awesome. Teacher incentive allotment, you've heard about that a lot, or you should have. When you hear those advertisements on the news about teachers making $100,000, or if you go to this district, you know, in the classroom, you're going to be able to make $120,000. That is true to a certain point. Some of our districts in Texas have already started the teacher allotment improvement, the teacher incentive allotment. We're in the beginning stages. And so I provided a link for you there so that you can, when you have time, go and look at that link and it'll show you the steps that we've already taken. The personnel department has collaborated with the curriculum department and the finance department to put together a plan as to how we're gonna move in the direction of having our own teacher incentive allotment. This next year is gonna be our application year. Ms. Gorham and Ms. Sanders and Ms. Lampman have been working on the application, along with support from curriculum and instruction, of course, to make sure that what we send in is gonna be accepted and it'll be adequate. After the application year, we then go to our capture year, which will be the 23-24 year. 24-25, we will find out if our application is accepted. And if it is, then the following year, we will receive the funds to be able to support a teacher incentive allotment that will allow us to pay a teacher a different salary based on the criteria that our district has decided on. So it's a long process. We've done a lot of work. The link is there if you want to go through and see every step-by-step that has been taken. We've talked to, and Ms. Sanders has put together not only a steering committee, but a task force to make sure that we're getting input from every one of our people we service to make sure that it is what our district wants to do. And it looks the way that our district wants it to look, and our teachers want it to look. They're making the decisions as to what the criteria will be. So, also, T-Class grant, again, this is in collaboration with our curriculum and instruction department also. We have two programs, and you might remember that Ms. Sanders mentioned them to you in her presentation. One of them was for paraprofessionals who are wanting to become teachers. We had 4 to 6 applicants or participants in that program this past year. And then we also have a teacher group, a residency program that we're working with A&M San Antonio. It's been a little bit slower getting that one going, but we did have 1 teacher participate in the program last year. We have the potential of possibly 2 coming in. And what it is that students that are not yet educators, they do their residency and it's paid. In the past, when we were going through school, your student teaching year was your last year, your senior year, and you were still a student. You didn't get paid for that year, but you went and got the application. The residency programs allow for the candidate to do their last year in residence learning, but it's a paid position while they're learning to become the educator. And hopefully they like us so much that when they finish, they stay with us. So those are some highlights that are going on in the personnel department. I really want to emphasize the PASA presentations because that's really what we're using to determine how we're going to have to set staffing. And as y'all recall, last year Mr. Toscano came to y'all several years and asked, and thank you so much for allowing us to hire teachers and put in our bank, because every one of those teachers is in a position, and we need even more. So keeping on track with boundaries, y'all know we had to do some adjustments for our middle schools this last year. We anticipate the possibility of doing that. All of that and assisting with who the numbers are, where the numbers are, who the kids are, will be managed through the personnel department. So any questions on personnel?
Yeah, let me ask.
Okay.
Okay, personnel, when you're looking at this leadership pipeline, what qualities or what skills are you looking at for a person to be a leader, a principal? What are you looking at?
So in personnel, what we're seeing our role is to help develop the products that the committees will use to determine. For example, one piece of the application is called the fit. And what it is a personality inventory of sorts that the candidate takes, and based on the way they answer the questions, it will give the district a breakdown of what their strengths are. It gives them a score in certain areas. For example, how culturally developed are they? How insightful are they with cultural development? And so if it gives them a score from 1 to 8, 8 being the highest. If they score low, then it gives you some examples of, here's some questions that you might want to ask to see what their real thoughts are. Or here's some ideas to help them develop in that area. So it has criteria and it has categories that help us define where their strengths are. It gives them a score, and that's called the fit. We also have on the application where it can ask, are you a teacher who's willing to be in the program for national board certification? Are you seeking that? If they answer yes to that, then we know this is a teacher who is wanting to participate in possibly the teacher incentive allotment because they can have that higher score. Plus, they're already certified in that area, which requires several years of additional instruction and projects-based to become a national teacher. So we don't necessarily help we don't identify them, we find the criteria that we can feed to then our partners to say, here's
So
the
that's,
candidate.
so what she's speaking about is the actual application process for, say, a principalship. The pipeline Mr. McKay was talking about earlier is when we identify people who have aspirations to be in leadership, and we identify them as people with potential. So one of the tools we're developing right now is a pre-screening tool that will, through a 360-degree evaluation, where you get feedback from somebody you work with, the direct, somebody you supervise, someone that supervises you. And what we're looking for entry into the residency is that they have the skills you can't teach. So these are EQ. You get along with people, you're reliable, you got a good work ethic. This is what gets you in.
Right.
But what you need to actually lead a school also includes some very technical skills. So this is what the residency develops. But if you got a lot of technical skills, but nobody wants to work with you because you don't get along with
That's the
people,
point I'm making.
you're not in the program.
Yeah.
So the first line of screening, once you say you want to, and we identify these potentials to prove that you got these social emotional skill sets, that people, you work well with people,
Okay,
that you're a good employee.
good.
Now we can train you on the technical aspects of being a principal.
There we go.
See what I'm saying?
Now, it makes
You
sense
only
now.
gain entry
It
because
makes
people
sense
can't
now.
teach you.
Yeah, I'm roll my sleeves up, I'm not gonna ask you to do nothing, I'm not gonna do. But I understand what you're saying now, I just want you to hear that part of it, thanks a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to hear
Is
that.
our, any of those similar to the master teacher program that ISD?
Yeah, so the teacher incentive allotment is a little bit different, what Stevie was referring to, and that's really an entitlement program to TEA. So those are funds they own. We have the opportunity to develop our own program to set the criteria and the requirements for a teacher to earn a designation. You can use whatever terms you want, we call them a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3, or master teacher. So let's say the more low socioeconomic and the more rural your community is, the more of an additional stipend a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3 teacher will earn. Because what the agency wants to do is incentivize people to stay in the classroom to make more money, and they want to incentivize them to go teach in hard-to-staff school communities, low socioeconomic and rural. And so the degree to which you're more of that, more money comes with level 1, level 2. So if you're a level 1 teacher in East Central, you may not make an additional stipend that is as great as if you were a level 1 teacher in, Lyman, right? And so this is not something that so the district can create the program, send the application to TEA, which we're sending next year. They have to approve it because they're basically saying it's quality enough that if you say they're level 1, level 2, level 3, then we will fund it. So then we pay a teacher, say they're a level 3 master's teacher, they qualified, TEA will send an additional up to $30,000, depending on degree of rural, degree of low socioeconomic. And that teacher gets at least 90% of that. The district can do whatever with the other 10. So we don't pay for it, and the teacher can carry that designation to any other district that they go to. So this is a way to incentivize teachers to come to the profession and stay in the classroom. Here's the problem. It's been proven everywhere in other states that have tried something like this. It's a very small percentage of teachers that actually benefit from it. So it's not the real solution. It may be a part of a multi-layered effort, but we're pursuing it because it's an opportunity, but we're not hanging our hat on it because it'll be very few teachers among our 750 that actually benefit from it when it's all said and done.
We are in a cohort right now in Region 20 to see if we had interest in our district of anybody who was wanting to move in that direction. And we were able to, we just put it out there, asked, did a survey, was anybody interested? We saw a little bit of interest, put it out there, okay, we're gonna put together a program, you're gonna be meeting with Region 20, we'll even, you don't have to pay for it. And we filled the first cohort of 10, and we had enough to fill the second cohort. So we have, and honestly, I bring that up to let you know that it's happening, but I don't know how many decided to stay active in it. I'll get that information, but we had about 20 teachers who showed interest in becoming nationally board certified.
So, so the first designated level, you're guaranteed to qualify if you have a national board, if you're a national board certified teacher. So where that partnership she was referring to, Region 20, is a program where we're preparing them to earn national board certification. So if they earn that, they'll qualify for the up to, I think it's $8,000 extra a year from the agency. It depends, again, that amount depends on what percentage of low socioeconomic and how, we're not
What their
designated as
placement
rural,
is.
for the record, we're not a rural school district.
Right.
But that, we just felt like that's one way to get folks to at least qualify for something, because the criteria for the others, we can build out what we want, but it's gotta be approved. And to be approved, it's gotta be pretty rigorous. It's pretty dang hard to get level 2,
Gotcha.
really hard.
And we know we're competing with districts for the same few teachers that are out there, and if they're, they're publicized, you can come to the district and make $100,000, well,
Yeah, right, that was good.
so.
I got you.
So are they required to come in earlier than other teachers? No,
You-
good, okay.
You can create whatever
Right.
conditions you want in
Yeah.
your plan. You can say, if you're a master teacher, this is also the requirement. We haven't built that in, I guess that's.
Well, just a heads up that my friend who is a master teacher went to SAISD,
Interesting.
makes 100,000, but I'm gonna just be honest, she's burnt out.
Was she says, she gotta spend the night there?
We gotta work on that extra 15
Yeah, they
days.
gotta work extra, but just, only because of her campus leadership, that's one of the reasons, but I just, I mean, that's a wonderful.
Well, more is
that's
not,
awesome.
more is not always better.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
see.
But this, it's
Money's
awesome
not
that y'all are
gonna-
doing it.
We're looking at
You
it.
gotta have a love for the kids.
Money can't buy happiness,
There you go.
and a boat.
Okay, so facilities management, and maintenance. If you recall last year, y'all tasked us with looking at facilities management. Looks like technology skipped, but I think hopefully it'll be next, yes, thank you. And so what we've spent some time with this last year in facilities management is really looking at our partnerships and our community partners, and building that relationship with all of them so that we can utilize them better in organizing our planning for our current facilities and our future facilities. So we're trying to really embrace those relationships and build our partnerships with Sarah, the River Authority, the Housing Authority, our demographers, the water systems, the electrical systems, TxDOT, all of those areas and entities that are critical to us to running and keeping our facilities at the highest level possible, and also moving in the direction that we're gonna need those partnerships when we start looking at possible additions or increases of facilities. So, in the planning piece of that, Mr. Thomas has really been critical with going out there and seeing where we are, determining, doing analysis of our facilities, what improvements we need on our current facilities, and putting together plans to address those needs. Along with that is site analysis, looking at areas in the district that we can possibly utilize, looking at the access to those areas, looking at the feasibility of those areas, looking at whether it's going to be a good site for any type of facility in our area. As y'all know, real estate in our areas is tight and expensive, but we know the kids are here and they're coming, so we've got to be planning. So we're really strengthening those relationships and looking at where we are. Some of these pictures here will show you some of our new leadership structures. You'll see a picture there. Those are our 3 foremen, 3 of our 4 foremen. Y'all know Julio retired this year.
Yes.
So that was a big piece. I mean, he's been with us for 20-something years, so replacing Julio and his level of experience and expertise that he developed here is going to be difficult, but we feel like we've selected Nick Golick. He's been with us he's been in the business for quite a while, but in the district for, I think, about 4 or 5 years now. And so he's gonna need a little bit of time to get back up to Julio's level, but we're really feeling like he and Keith Moore, under the leadership of Mr. Thomas, are gonna be our leadership in the maintenance department and the facilities management. We also have our 4 foremen who we really need to invest in, and we're trying to, our goal for them this year is not only to become experts in their field, which they already are, of HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and grounds. We want them to become experts leaders, because not only do they need to know their craft, they need to know how to build capacity and lead their teams. It's just as critical on the service side of our district for them to work as a team when they're out at our campuses, to know how to function. We are taking the concept that the district is using for CG process and then applying it in our departments also. So I hope this link works and it's in yours. But you'll see how we're applying the CG process to building systems so that everybody knows where we're going. This is our facilities management page. And if you wanted to know how we're preparing on equipment replacement, this is our equipment replacement for air conditioning, boilers, and softeners. So we've got every one of them in the district. We know when it's due, we know when we purchased it, we know when it needs to be replaced. That's, if we want to look at capital projects that we've been doing, we have them color-coded, we know what the process is, we know when we PO'd it, we know it's going to be paid, we know when it's coming in. These are systems that are helping us to stay organized and make sure we're servicing our departments better. Each one of these tabs is another process. Now, we're not done. We've started our replacement schedules, and we have some really good ones, but we still have a ways to go. We've been at it for a year, and we think over the next couple of years, we'll be able to be just as good as curriculum and instruction. That's a challenge. One of the new things that we also did this year to better communicate with our administrators and our campuses is we put together a calendar. And so off of our page, and everybody has access to this, you can look at any day in the summer and determine if the principal's like, okay, are they going to be here today? All they have to do is go to this calendar and they can see what's happening and if anything's happening at their campus. Whether an HVAC unit is being replaced and they're not going to have AC. Whether we're going to be testing the alarm system and it's going to be loud for 15 seconds for about 30 minutes, on and on. Whether someone's going to be coming over and painting their parking lot. So our intentions are to be better services to the people that, better communicators to the people that we serve, and to make sure that they know how we're supporting them. So that's one of the things that we're doing to make sure that with the tasks that y'all gave us last year, making sure that we had replacement schedules, making sure that we knew where our money was going and how we were going to plan to address the needs at our facilities. Y'all know that when we proposed, when the committee put together some of the bond projects, some of the things were for capital improvements at some of our campuses that are getting a little bit older. So we've already started looking at, one of the things on there was to replace the bathrooms at Heritage. Since that didn't happen, we've got to start fitting that in, because it still needs to be improved, it still needs to happen. So you'll see on next year's capital improvement projects how we're going to start baby stepping that, regardless of if a bond passes or not, it has to get done. So we were also blessed, I'm going to call it a blessing, with very large bits of pockets of money that came to us through an insurance settlement with the hailstorm that hit us, about a year and a half ago. It really gave us a pocket of money to address replacing roofs. So we've got a schedule for that back on our page, and it's a big 3-year project that we are going to start this summer. It's a blessing because it's allowing us to get caught up on some roof replacements that we hadn't been able to do, but we've got a lot of work to do because it's coming in and we've got a timeline by which we have to complete them by. Same thing with our ESSER monies. We were blessed to get a piece of that money. That's what's allowing us to replace a lot of our HVAC systems. So that's a stream of money that we were lucky to get, but the next 3 years will be very busy in making sure we're applying those funds appropriately and timely. Leadership training, I talked to you about that a little bit. It's critical that we not only have experts in the field, but we have people who know how to lead and can grow their own teams. I'm going to mention this real quick. We started a conversation, I'm going to see it at that, with Dr. Holman in the CTE programs. We've met with her at least twice, Mr. Thomas and I, and we've talked to her about building a program we want to build to grow our own on the facilities management side. We know that the high school has a CTE program for construction management, and in there they learn basic plumbing, basic electrical, basic HVAC. So Dr. Holman is going to help us next year. She's already excited about it, and looking at what we can do with the curriculum to plan so that at the end of their sophomore year, those are our interns kids working in our department. So that at the end of their junior year, they're in a program that instead of going to work for another company, they're coming and working with us in our maintenance department, so that when they graduate, they may already have an apprenticeship, or they're working as helpers in those industries, and hopefully they'll come work for us. So we're looking at the same types of systems that the academic side is implementing to try to emphasize them and infuse them on the service side. Any questions about the facility management?
That's excellent.
Good idea.
Great job, good job.
Thank you. So technology. Technology, I'm pleased to say, is doing very well. I don't want to take, doing very well in regards to being able to service the people that, the campuses and the departments with technical assistance in the classrooms. Where we're growing is that Mr. Toscano did allow us to hire one more additional technician, which brings us up to 7 for the district, and this one last technician will be focused primarily on Chromebooks. At the request of Dr. Fuller, she was really wanting to make sure that the campuses had what they needed and a little bit more, so that we're able to not only do testing and assessment electronically that is required, but also have resources for the students who may not have those resources at home. So with that collaboration, they've been able to find some funding for us, and we're calling it the Chromebook implementation. And the last technician we hired will just be for Chromebooks. And they're going to be setting up a system to where we're making sure we have a backup for the backup, and we have replacement parts, and we have replacement units for those that may need that assistance at the campus. Dr. Dykstra, who leads the technology department, is also working with a collaboration with an agency that's called the Emergency Connectivity Fund. And we have applied for participation in that. We don't know whether it's going to happen or not yet. I'm thinking positive, but if it does, we will be receiving funds to purchase resources for our community in regards to hotspots, in regards to devices. They have to use them specifically. It has to go to a child who has a learning gap, and we have to be able to show that they're using it at home. We have to track the time. We have to show that they're using it academically at home. And am I missing a little piece of that, Dr. Fuller? Did I get it pretty much? Okay, thank you. So we're looking at that collaboration also. Dr. Dykstra is also involved himself, or he's been asked to be involved in Region 20 with a collaboration with our community to making sure that we're having enough power out in our communities with many towers so that people have access to the internet. The growth is a positive and a negative, but I want to say it's a positive thing in the form of technology, because it is allowing those rural areas of our district that now have communities being built in them to have easier access to internet, because with that community is coming the wires, is coming the sources for the internet. So we're going to see a little bit of improvement in that. And another, last year y'all approved a position in technology for cybersecurity. When we hired that, we had a vision for that position. The vision is slightly changed, and what we have found is that this position has really allowed us to put in some security systems to secure our data as much as we think we can, as best we know how. As y'all know, we did the two-way authentication this year. Y'all had to register and get your code, and so now whenever you're on a new device, as a protection to the district and the systems and the data in our district, sometimes you're asked to put in a code. That was part of the security systems that we're implementing to protect the data in the district. Also, Andrew, who is Mr. Mendoza, who is our cybersecurity agent, is also watching the data and who's using our data and how they're using our data. He's been instrumental in finding information when we see it on our systems to be able to alert an administrator at a campus or a person on a campus and say, okay, here's something that you see that this student has been investigating this, a little bit off. It's coming through our firewall, so it's not necessarily something that they shouldn't be, but it's something you need to be concerned about. Maybe they're looking at sites that talk about something that is not positive for the student. So we've been able to use that position in that way also. And training, reaching out to the community. We have a trainer in the department. Unfortunately, the trainer has not been utilized fully this year, but it is our intention to continue to meet that community engagement part of the district CG plan by continuing to offer courses for the community to come in, and not just the community, but our own people. So we're gonna continue with that. Any questions on the technology? Moving on. Transportation. I'm pleased to say that in transportation, y'all have allowed us to be at a really good spot with supporting us. We were lucky to get the VW grant a couple of years ago. This year was the last year of the VW grant, but we are now at about 150 buses that we use daily and are en route. Our average year of a vehicle has dropped dramatically. So we service about 150 buses, about 50 white fleet in our transportation department. They are making chicken salad out of the pieces that they have, but we're very blessed. Y'all have really given us a lot to work with, and we thank you for that. We also thank you for the incentives that you allowed for attendance and performance for our transportation. We added teachers this year, but you've also allowed that for transportation for 2 years now, so thank you for that. We are working heavily on recruitment and retention because anybody with a CDL driver can go wherever they want and get the job that they want, making $100,000. So we have to make sure that our drivers want to stay with us, or are doing the best that we can with keeping our drivers. We want to build capacity in our leaders, and so we're using our professional development days to train and to emphasize safety. The next steps for our transportation department will be to explore how we can make transportation on our buses even safer. Our ridership is up to pre-COVID numbers. We have about 55% of our student population that ride our buses. Some routes are heavy, some still are a little bit light, but most of our routes are pretty full. So we want to make sure that we're using every avenue to keep the students safe on the bus. So we're exploring options. Y'all seen about swipe cards. The students swipe a card when they get on a bus. That's an option that we currently have through Here Comes the Bus, a service that we already provide. So we're going to the next steps to see how we can improve student safety on the buses. Anything about transportation? Any questions? And lastly, custodial. Custodial, again, let me say thank you because we did go up on the salary of custodial, and I understand there may be a request to stay competitive. We have struggled in finding some staff for custodial, and it's led us to the possibility of looking at outsourcing. We're just looking at options right now to see whether we can partner with a company or bring in a company to assist us with some of our campuses. We don't want our services at the campuses to suffer. Unfortunately, we have asked our campuses to be patient with us as we try to balance out our custodial staff. Sometimes we don't have full crews at the campuses, but they are working their hardest to make sure all the needs are met. We have not varied from the heightened requirements that we implemented at COVID. When COVID hit, custodial department changed their cleaning processes. We're still with those, even though most of the kids are back. So we're looking at campuses. We're making sure, last year y'all tasked us also with making sure that every campus had what they needed. So we're going through an inventory in campuses, making sure that they have the equipment, the appropriate equipment, the best chemicals to clean fast and easy. So that's still something that we're working on this year also, and leadership training for custodial. So just to recap, some of the department's work that is going on is the teacher incentive allotment and the leadership pipeline, recruitment and retention really everywhere in every department, looking at replacement schedules and continuing to implement a good replacement schedule so everybody knows what's going on in all of our departments, leadership training in each, and really looking at projecting for growth in all avenues, staffing to facilities, to custodial, to cleaning supplies, to every aspect. That's what I got.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
Very good.
Last but not least,
Judy Burns.
money bag.
Come on down, the oldest person who's usually sleeping by now.
I go along with that, Judy.
Amen to that, it's only one bedtime.
Okay, I'll
Turned
try
in, had the TV
to.
turned off, and that bottle of wine had been going.
I think the air got turned off at 8:30.
I think it got
Yeah,
turned off.
Shane
It
turned
probably
off.
turned
Shane
off at
turned off.
5:30.
Okay, sorry.
Well, I hope I can be as interesting as Shane and Shannon and Stevie have been. They've been telling you such great things that they're doing and what they're happening, and I'm just gonna talk to you about numbers. So anyway, let's get started. Let's talk about our fund balance for the past 4 years, or really the past 5 years. You can see that we steadily have been increasing our fund balance since 1819. And right now for 2021, per our audit, our general fund balance went up to $28 million, which is good, which is wonderful. But I feel like in 21, 22, our fund balance is going to continue to increase. And even though y'all have been very gracious about letting us use our fund balance to buy 3 parcels of land, and that took over $3.5 million. But I believe that our fund balance will increase because of a couple of things, and that's ESSER. And what's happening with ESSER is we're using that money to, for the next couple of years to pay our high school teachers and our middle school teachers. And so we're not having to spend that money out of local. And so that's going to help us in our fund balance to be prepared for when ESSER goes away. So I feel like we'll still be in a good shape for next year to have our meetings and to do what we need to do. And also our debt service has gone up, and that will help us too whenever we do go out for a bond, and it will help us to get a better rating with Moody's on that. So I feel really good about the fund balance that we have. Right now, I feel like, and I don't always want to say the exact because it can change for certain different things, but I think we could be probably up about $2 million from where we're at now, maybe a little bit more. Just it depends on how everything plays out in the next few months. And it depends also on our attendance. The state is giving us, for the first 4 to 6 weeks, that we can use 93.60% new attendance rate versus what our attendance rate was for those first 4 to 6 weeks, which were not very good. So that's going to help us. So I'm waiting for the last 6 weeks so that way I can do a calculation of what our ADA would be and what we'll get from the state. Do y'all have any questions about the fund balance?
You're waiting for the last 6 weeks of
That just finished, they have to
They just
complete-
finished, okay.
Yeah, they have to complete that. In fact, it ought to be done in the next week or so because of the summer teams. And also with debt service, what we did this year, so, and it really helped us, is that we did a defeasance. And with that defeasance is that what we did is we kept the tax rate at the same that we had the year before, even though we could have lowered it about a penny, maybe a penny and a half. But what that did is that gave us enough money to pay down bonds. And so we used that money, and we had Victor help us. And we were able to pay down bonds by $1.2 million, which is going to save us over $250,000 over the long run on interest. So we're planning to do that again for this year because we need to prepare for whenever we do go out for a bond that we've paid down our debt as much as possible. And you'll see how our debt is. We're one of the lowest debt ratio school districts in Bexar County. Our tax rate is the lowest in Bexar County for this year, and I think we will continue to be the lowest for next year. And what's going to happen is probably, what happens is that we have to do a maximum compressed tax rate, as they call it MCR, and it depends on what your growth and your tax rate is. And it looks like we will be lowering our local, our M&O rate even lower. Because we got our first preliminary of from June 2nd this year versus June 2nd of last year. And it was unbelievable, the difference of our value. Now, this is just market value, it's not taxable value. It went up by $2 billion. Wow. That's huge. Now, what's going to happen, this is just preliminary. We won't get our certified value till July 25th, but just seeing that, and they have all the protests and everything, and again, that's market, that's not taxable. Taxable went up by $1.2 billion. But that's going to make the state say, East Central, your rate has to go lower. And you would think, well, that'll be good for our taxpayers. Yes, it would be good for our taxpayers, but their property values went so high that they'll see a little bit, but they're not gonna see a great reduction, and they probably will see more tax, even though our tax rate is gonna have to go down. But what happens is, TA has a formula, and they pretty much set your tax rate. So, what we're gonna do is we'll see what it is. That'll happen after we get our certified values. And I've talked to Mr. Toscano about this. The first time that I'm going to ask an outside vendor to help us do our certified tax rate. And the reason why I want to do that, I think East Central is one of the very few districts that don't use Mo Casey to help with your truth and taxation. We've always done it ourselves. We've always felt like we knew exactly what we need to do, and I still feel I know exactly what to do, but I want another pair of eyes to look at it, because we're having a $40,000 adjustment that you're having for a homestead. You know, our tax rate, our taxable value is going up so high. So we're gonna enlist the help of Mo Casey, just to have another set of eyes to make sure that we've done everything correct, and that whatever we publish for our truth and taxation is accurate. But I feel like I'll be doing it at the same time they do, and I'd be very surprised if Shannon and I don't come up with this exact same thing they do. But I just feel very strongly that it's time to, because when I talk to other school districts, they're like, you do your own report yourself? And I said, yeah, we've done it for years. And they're like, oh no, we farm it out to Mo Casey. But I just want to do it this year just to make sure that everything's right. So we're going to be doing that, and right now, we're doing very well on our collections. At the end of April, we're at 90%, or we're at 92%. Last year, we were at 90%. So we're doing really, really very well. Now, the lowest that we can go for M&O per the state would be 0.8046. I don't know if that will be our rate or not. We won't know until we get the final certified tax values, and then we'll find out if, hey, we're gonna go down from 0.87 to 0.8046. I know we're gonna go down once we see that last value that we get. And really and truthfully, what is gonna happen is that's gonna be more that all of us who own property are gonna have to pay the most on. The state will be able to keep some of their money, because as all of y'all know, when your value goes up and your property value goes up and you get more tax money, the state takes more away. It's never, oh, we'll let them have it. No, it's never like that. It's not like counties or cities. So the state will be able to keep their money, and they have billions from what they have not had to pay out to school districts. So, do y'all have any questions about the current tax rate or the possible tax rate? And this one I'm really proud of. Not only do we have the lowest tax rate in Bear County, we are the second to lowest in the 2020 debt ratio. The only one lower is Alamo Heights. As you can see, we're at 2.71. Northeast is just a little bit above us, but look at Somerset. They have a huge tax debt. We've been careful never to get in that position, and the board, the superintendent, y'all have always been careful about when we go out for bonds or what we do. We also always do any type of refunding that we can do, and that all helps that. So one good thing, if we do go out for bonds, and if it does pass, this is all good information that Moody's will use to give us a good interest rate, to give us an A+ rating. So I'm very proud of the district for keeping their debt ratio low. Y'all have any questions on that? Okay. ESSER funding 2, 3, and R. That is what we're getting from the federal government, and it ends in 2024. And I think that we have been very careful of how we use ESSER. There's some things we have to do. We have to spend at least 20% on learning loss, and Dr. Fuller and her staff are using that money to take care of the students, what they need to do. But what we decided we were going to use it was to pay for those salaries for teachers at the high school as well as middle school. And we were very careful about what teachers we chose because we didn't want to jeopardize how we code for our special allotments. So we took the master schedule and looked at every teacher that had 100% was a regular program. They didn't have any career in tech, they didn't have any special ed, they didn't have any athletic periods, and we charged them to ESSER. We did the same thing to the middle school. What does that do? That helps your fund balance for at least 2 years. So instead of saying, okay, well, let's buy this, let's buy that. Well, that's all well and good, and we need to do some of that. But some of this, we need to think smarter, so that way, in 2 years, we have the money if things get tight. You know, we will be able to do what we need to do. Also, we were able to do the HVAC programs. We were able to reimburse some of our health program for COVID. And our health program had about $260,000 worth of claims. So we were able to refund our self-insured for that. We also paid for cleaning supplies. So we were very careful on what we're doing with ESSER. Now, what we have to do, we better spend every dime of ESSER 2 and 3 or we're not doing our job. Because we don't want to send any of that money back when we can use it for our own community. So the ARP money with formula, that has been really good for special ed. They're using it to buy buses. And so again, they've been very careful and be very diligent about what they're going to spend their money on. So that way it helps sustain the budget for later down the line. And between Dr. Fuller and Meredith and the KPIs, it's all transparent where we're at. Now, I will tell you, when you fill out a reimbursement request for ESSER, they want more and more information. And Meredith is providing that to them. And so we're doing good about doing our drawdowns, and we're doing good about spending our money, but we're going to make sure that we spend every dime. Do y'all have any questions on that?
Well, what is ESSER? What is it?
Well, ESSER is the money that the federal government gave to states and school districts. And I can't remember what ESSER stands for, maybe Dr. Fuller does. Oh, it's elementary and secondary school emergency relief.
But how do you qualify for that?
Well, they figured it out on an amount per school district.
Oh, okay.
The state did. And then you had to do an application for it, and that's how you got your money.
Oh, it's a grant.
It's a grant.
Right.
And it's a very
And you can use 20%. After that, you can use it however you want to use it.
Yeah.
All right.
Emergency relief fund, code.
Good. All right, okay. Thank you. I had never.
Okay, now compensation 21, 22. You know, we gave a raise this last year, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna give it a substantial raise for 22, 23. We are giving a 5% raise, and it's an actual 5% raise for our teachers. And so, as you can tell, our teachers with 0 years are gonna go to 56,000, and you can see the different years that we have there. We're gonna be back in the running with a lot of school districts. We might be a little less than some. A lot of them have not committed to what they're having, they're not putting it out there yet. But, you know, Judson said they're gonna be 57,000, they're gonna give 6%. And so I got their information and I started comparing theirs and ours. And, yeah, they're higher on 0 years, but then from the time from 0 to what we have up to 30, there's only 4 years that they are higher than we are. We beat Judson on every other one. We're paying more than they are on those particular years of experience. Now, Judson, what they said is, oh, we're giving you a 6% raise. it's not a 6% raise. What they're doing is they're taking a person with 20 years, and they figured that as 6%. And then anybody from 0 all the way to, they pay up to 40 years of experience, they're giving them the same amount of raise that they're giving a 1-year teacher versus a 25-year teacher. So really, 0 to 20, they're getting more than 6%. After 20, you're starting to get less than 6%. Ours is a true 5%. It's a 5% on whatever you're making this year. So I feel good about that. And, you know, y'all sent, I think, a clear message to Mr. Toscano and to all of us, is that you want it to be, to pay our employees like they should be, and that we needed to be back in the game with our school districts. And so we feel like with this we are. And right now we are going to be bringing you the full salary compensation package to you on the June board meeting. And that's going to be looking to like a 3 to 5% midpoint pay increase for staff who on pay grades. So that's pay grade 101, which is administrators, all the way to 501 or 505, which is technology. And some are going to get 3%, some will get 4%, some will get 5%. The 3% will be more towards the admin. The 5% will be more on the auxiliary and paraprofessional. But one thing we're going to do is not one of our employees will make less than $15 per hour. Right now, our custodial and our paraprofessionals that are on pay grade 201, they make $12 now. So they're going to get a substantial raise going from 12 to 15. We did that for several reasons. One, it was necessary. We were losing people to other school districts or other businesses, custodial, as well as paras. So we had to give them more of a living wage, so we went to 15. So it's going to be presented to y'all at your board meeting in June. And the bus monitors and drivers will also be compensated to some degree. They will be compensated to the same degree as the others. So we're just committed to staying competitive, and so we'll be very proud to present that to y'all. Now, it's going to cost money, and we know that, but it's costing us more by not doing it. So what we'll be doing is, it's probably going to cost us $2 million just to do the teachers. And so it's going to, we could have a custodian right now who's making 12, and starting this, September 1, they'll make 15, and they'll make a $6,000 a year raise. So that's substantial for somebody who's trying to buy groceries, get gas, take care of their family. So we are hoping that that will be a good indication of keeping our employees and showing them what the district wants to do for them. Y'all have any questions?
Is that scale based on the bachelor's?
Yes, so we would add $1,800 to that if they were had masters.
That's what okay.
Yeah. And also, just to let y'all know, in December, we're going to do a salary study with TASB, which is the Texas Association of School Boards. We do one with them about every 2 or 3 years. We tried to be on their list and get one done this spring so we could say, okay, where do we need to be? They were already booked. The closest they could get in December. We're still going to do that because we want to make sure we're still in the market. We want to make sure that we have people placed on the right pay scales. We want to make sure that we are paying a good stipend, and they're able to do that by doing the salary study. So we'll see how that does. We won't be bringing any kind of raises to y'all on that from their study until the next school year. Do y'all have any, but really and truthfully for our teachers, it's about a $3,000 a year raise.
That's fine. That's good.
Thank you for doing that.
That's good, yeah.
I know with the increase of gas and everything else,
The
that
increase of
means a lot.
And really truthfully, it's Esther that's allowing us to do this. Because we are hoping that when Esther leaves, and we don't have it anymore, we will have a nice fund balance. We are also hoping, when that happens, that the legislature will decide to fund the school districts like they should fund. That's a big hope. But we're also hoping that our enrollment will increase, and we're hoping our average daily attendance, kids will come to school. Our enrollment increases is great, but if they don't come to school, that doesn't help us at all. We still have to pay the teacher even if some of her class are not there. And the next thing, do y'all have any question on the compensation? The employee health care. I am really, really proud of the employee health care and the benefits department we have. It has improved over the last 5 years under the direction of Mr. Toscano, and I'm not just trying to butter him up, but he has given some specifics that he liked, and he's always been open-minded when either Shannon and I would say to him, hey, you know, we only give $10,000 life insurance for our employees. We could do $20,000 and it's not gonna cost us any money, hardly any money. He was the first one to say, do that, you know? And so I really appreciate his diligence in trying to have good benefits for our employees. And it's really great because every time we did a survey or a thought exchange, our benefits department got beat up about this, about that. And it's not that they weren't trying, it's just that we didn't have the ability to do some of this. We do now. And so, as y'all know, we had to opt out of TRS healthcare because we had a self-funded insurance. And so next year, we're just going to be doing the self-funded insurance. And it's with CARE ACT. We'll still have the clinic. We're going to go up $35 per month for employees. We are also going to do a PHA, which is personal health assessment. If employees and their spouse go and have that done, they will see a reduced amount for their monthly premiums. And they're going to do a lower tier deduction and promote continued enrollment, continue to offer well-being telemedicine. And I think Roland is going to be talking about, and maybe he wants to do that tonight, about Wonder Health. And that's another good thing for our employees. But I also have to say that Shannon Burns handles the benefits. Okay, she's the one that meets with all these. She knows her stuff better than I could ever know this. And she is an advocate for, you know, she can say, Judy, look at this claim, Judy, look at this, look at this. If we just do this, we can save this and that. And what is so good about it, she's been recognized for her leadership that she's done with the benefits. She's been chosen to be on the board of the TEBC, which is the Texas Educators Employees Benefits Co-op for the whole state. There's only 5 members, and they asked Shannon to be one of them. So that is kudos for us. I mean, for East Central, 10,000 students to be on this board is really remarkable, and it's because of her knowledge and how she handles the benefits. So, you know, I'm really proud of that and how she's done that. So our benefits, I feel like, are only getting better. We've also had TCG come out and do presentations about the having investments. They can't sell product, but they can tell you about doing this or doing that. And all I can say is, I wish when I had started at East Central that somebody would have said that to me. Because right now, I'd be in the Bahamas, I would not be here. But I wish somebody 10 years ago would have done that. It would have been a world of difference. But we are giving as much information and promoting as much as we can to our employees to say, hey, it's not just teacher retirement. You need to have other kind of retirement options. And it's great to have a company that comes out that's not trying to sell you something like an insurance person or, you know, investment person. So that's another benefit that has really been really good that we have worked on. So, Roland, did you want to say anything about Wonder Health or?
I'm going to talk to the board about it a little bit mid-year, but, you know, the PHA's personal health assessments is the first step. We want every employee to know what their numbers look like. And then to improve or make progress on any of those, Wonder Health is the tool. Wonder Health is the tool to help them decide where their opportunities are and what improvements they want to make. Wonder Health can provide the sustained support for them and their adult age dependents in their home. So it's giving them the tool they need to actually do something with the numbers that they have. So it's another level of commitment that we're serious about helping them to take care of themselves and their families, because we know if they do, they're more able to give more of themselves to our kids and services of the children in the community. And so we're real excited about that. I know our employees are excited about it. I did give them a little bit of a teaser about it at the end of the year. I wanted them to leave encouraged and excited about next year and the years to come. And that was one of the things I shared with them. So we're very excited, and they're already doing their homework. Can't wait to hear more.
That's good.
Thank you for taking care of. I will say, Mr. Toscano has been the champion of having benefits for our employees. So I appreciate that. Do y'all have any questions? Purchasing. All I can say is hallelujah, hallelujah. We finally completed the physical count with FOLEP of every fixed asset and any inventory control item in the district. It's been a long time coming. We finally got them out here, and they have worked on that. We used the FOLEP system. They inventoried over 23,000 items were barcoded and entered into FOLEP software. That's a huge undertaking, and I appreciate staff that did that. I appreciate all the staff that helped do that, and I appreciate every secretary or whoever at the schools and departments who are continuously entering into FOLEP. It's a great way, it's a great tool for us to know where we're at and what we have, and we know where our assets are at. And so the next part is we're going to get rid of some inactive and unusable inventory via online auction. We're going to do that in the summer. And that will help clean up everything and clean up the space around here. So we're going to work on that and get that done. And we have had more staff training on purchasing, procurement, documentation, and commodity codes to stay in compliance with federal regulations. Because when you get ESSER money, you better have all this done. So we are having a lot of training on all of that. And, you know, there's some things we needed to implement, and we have with the commodity codes. So we're really doing everything we need to do to stay in compliance with that. And also, while we're talking about purchasing, and I don't have this as a slide, is that we've almost finished our first full year of Ascender, of our software. And it's been a little, sometimes good days, sometimes bad days, sometimes really bad days. But we feel like we have really got the Ascender software, and I'm just talking about the business side and the payroll side and the purchasing side. I'm not talking about the students' side, but we feel like they are making more progress than they had when we first rolled out the software. We are learning more. We're getting the bugs out of the program, and so it's been a long road with Ascender, but we feel like we're where we should be with Ascender. And so I just want to let you know that, you know, because I know most of y'all probably knew that in September we were one day late with our payroll, which was, it was like the sky was falling. The payroll ladies were besides themselves because they couldn't submit payroll, but they couldn't because over 280 of our employees' records disappeared off the software. But Region 13 are champions. They helped us through it the next day. I really will say that Mr. Toscano called bank presidents and told them what happened, and they said, we'll take care of it. First Smart Credit Union, if you don't bank with them, you need to bank with them. they put the money in all of our employees' checking account that was, that banked with them. Other banks didn't do that. They just didn't charge you NSF. But First Bank, they were a great bank. They were very good to help these central employees. So we won't have that this year. We have got it down to a science, so we are good to go on that. So do y'all have any questions on the purchasing?
Well, I work. Trying to get anything done.
Okay. Child
Thanks, Ed.
nutrition. This year, child nutrition was moved under my role, and it's been enlightening, and I don't have to do a whole lot. Between Ramona and Veronica and Meredith, they handle child nutrition. Last year, it was Stop the Bleed for child nutrition because they have lost so much money because they didn't have product. They couldn't get some products. They weren't having a lot of meals served. And so at the end of last year, we were down to like $900,000. And that is something we never were that low with child nutrition. But with participation and with everything that the ladies are doing, we're now at 1.5 million. So we're doing really well. So I give all the glory to them and all their staff because they have really worked hard, because sometimes it's hard sometimes to even try to find some of the product they need, or even sometimes they had trouble finding the milk or whatever, but they persevered, and so their participation is up, and even with all this, they're reaching out to the community. They've done like 21 events. They're doing a summer feeding program. They're going to be at Elmendorf. They're going to be at Harmony. And so they just keep on tracking with their program. And so they have worked very hard for what they've done. You don't have any questions on child nutrition? Maybe being the last is not so bad. Okay, just to recap, our fund balance is healthy. We have a lower total tax rate. We have a very low debt ratio. ESSER funding, we talked about that. We have a very good competitive compensation. Our employee health care and benefits is improving every year. Our purchasing department is doing what they should be doing. So I really appreciate it. And our child nutrition program, they're just working very hard to make all of y'all proud of them. So if y'all have any questions?
I know it was hard on them with COVID and all the food situation, so it's good to know that they were able to overcome that.
Yes. Good job as always.
I'd like to say something. I want to compliment the presenters. Not one of them used notes. That's fantastic. They were prepared. They knew the stuff and they presented. I noticed that. That was really close. So that was great. That was good. Yeah, I was watching. No, that was great. You guys were prepared and you knew your stuff and presented it very well. We understand it all. Appreciate that.
Yes. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much.
You ready for the motion?
What's the hurry now?
Yeah.
What you hurry for now?
There you go. At least we'll get the chip off tomorrow.
Self-explanatory.
We're gonna have it on Saturday next time.
We'll make the chip off.
Motion for adjournment?
Yes.
Yeah, lady.